You know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
Very thankful for 12th man. They've won us games.
Been in college baseball for a while now, but I've never experienced anything like 12th man.
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
Our skill set worked great together. Like, he was more speed and I was more power, and then we put together, it was like thunder and lightning, you know.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
So day 3, OP, and I'm just going to tell you something I just told Greg McElroy. Name drop. His table's right next to ours just a few seconds ago. It's kind of like a little Groundhog Day at this point. It feels very much the same. But today, my friend, when I say loaded, this is like a baked potato with extra things you didn't even think you wanted in your baked potato. That's the kind of show we have planned for you today here on TexAgs Radio.
Some butter and some chives and some bacon and some cheese.
And some broccoli on there.
Broccoli on
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe it's not butter. On top of it?
On top of the butter.
On top of the butter.
Can't believe it is?
Yeah. Hey, it's TexAgs Radio.
Yeah, of course it is.
And the entire presentation is presented by a gem of a man named
David Gardner.
And his jewelers. Right? This studio is not the usual Rollo Insurance Studio, but it's the current Rollo Insurance Studio.
It's the traveling Rollo Insurance Studio.
The difference is real, by the way. I bet you knew that.
I knew that.
And this hour, and this segment's going to be really short, by the way. This hour is called the Go Hour, and that's presented by
CC Creations.
That is correct. And if you want to guests that call us on the show, they're on the Boss Firearms hotline.
Boss Firearms. So fire us off a call.
A call. But we probably won't take it.
Yeah.
I'm just supposed to say it out loud. And also,
there's more.
There is more. If we decide to go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, which we won't, if we decide to go there, it's sponsored by the Angry Elephant, and Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant.
I'm an angry elephant.
Bro. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Today on the podium.
Hey,
the headliner, Alabama.
Because we got, the Texas, though, that's coming to save the SEC.
Oh, that's so nice of them. That's really kind of them. You know what's funny? All the media members that were talking smack, I haven't seen them. They've been missing in action.
Well, I'm just, I'm really looking forward to Texas and Oklahoma playing each other in the SEC as an SEC team because, Chris Del Conte told us last month in Destin that it's an even bigger event.
Yes.
Than the Iron Bowl or any other SEC game. So it's good that they're able to come over here and help us out.
Our friend to the right over there, Cole Cubelic, actually made a comment about it saying, I don't care if there's fried Twinkies. It doesn't change the game. What happens on the field? I don't care about a tall paper mache statue. It's about what happens on the field.
You think they rankled anybody, any longtime SEC observers? And
I think so.
Yeah.
I
might ask him about that today.
Hey, here's a question for you. Okay, because Feinbaum discussed this on the show yesterday. Is Kirby Smart today better at his job than Nick Saban was roughly at this point in his career?
No.
So at this point in Saban's career, 1 championship at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby's got 2. In a different era of football, though, and remember Saban left, went to the Dolphins, and then obviously in 2008 ended up with the Alabama Crimson Tide. But you don't think so?
Saban had by this time in his career had won what?
By 47, 48 years old. I think he had only won one.
Okay. All right. Well, here's a big difference. Kirby's first head coaching job was at Georgia.
Yeah.
And Saban was at Toledo and then Michigan State and then took over an underachieving LSU and got them to win. And look what LSU's been before Saban and after Saban.
Correct. Yep.
So,
and it's also like
does he have more championships? Yes, but is he better? I don't think so.
It's a little similar to the Mahomes Brady talk in that, yeah, he's on the path. Tiger Woods was on the path.
On the path.
But a career is a long thing, brother.
Yeah. Now, does Kirby Smart have a legitimate chance to surpass in championships what Nick Saban accumulated? Yeah, he does. He's still pretty young, and he's at Georgia. And Georgia, again, is not the only real major program in a football-loving state with a lot of prospects.
Sure.
So, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a worthy conversation because, I mean, Kirby again. Now, I don't know if Georgia's going to win it again this year. They didn't win last year, obviously, but because of that brutal schedule that I think they have. But as you said yesterday in our preview, like, you play what's in front of you, buddy.
But, with the I'd say 11, 10 out of, or probably 12 out of 16 SEC teams always have a brutal schedule.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, they're not running out what Florida's doing.
You know what I've noticed this week? People are really high on LSU. Really high. And we are very similar in that, like, how can they be better? Their defense isn't better, and they lost their 3 best offensive players. Explain it to me.
Yeah, they keep talking about their defense getting better. And I'm saying, okay, well, last year your defense, and I'm being generous, was a D.
Were they like 110th in yards allowed, something like that?
Some might say it was an F.
Yeah.
So how much better? Yeah, are you going to be better? Okay, I can get that you think you're going to be better, even though your own coach acknowledged that they couldn't get the defensive tackles that they needed. But, okay, you're going to be better on defense. You got a new defense coordinator, all those things. How much better, though? Right. Are you going to be good enough to compensate for what you lost on offense? I'm sorry. I'm not saying Garrett Nussmeier won't be good. I'm saying the jury's way out on him.
Yep.
Just because you lit up Wisconsin doesn't mean a lot. Nick Starkel lit up Wake Forest. Didn't mean he was going to be a great quarterback.
Your buddies have a nice little backdrop over there, a nice little duct tape to put up their banner. That looks good. Real good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some
people were talking smoke. Hey, you asked the referees about the horns down, and you got a really good answer, buddy.
I thought he did give some good. Mr. McDade, John McDade, the director of SEC officials. Yeah. Sounds like he'd been asked that question before. He was
ready for it. Yeah. You want to kind of give us the OB version of what he said?
Yeah. First of all, he thinks horns down in itself is not a gesture that should warrant a penalty. He said a penalty would be something that I think he said would offend in a situation a reasonable person. Of course,
so like telling somebody they're number one with one particular finger in the middle.
Yeah. So, but he's saying, you could get a horns down penalty could be a horns down could be a penalty if, let's say, I tackled you, and as you're on the ground and I'm getting up, I stand over you,
and then you do
but that would be a penalty if you just pointed, or if you said
or you start talking smoke.
Right, yeah. So then you ask, is it really the horns down that's the penalty, or just the any act of taunting?
Correct.
Right? But beyond that, like he said, look, if you intercept the pass and keep me from scoring, and you run off the field with your teammates, you're celebrating, you do the horns down. He goes, no, that's not a penalty.
Right.
And he did say, look, the SEC, they've got teams that have their gestures, the gator chop, the shark fin, things like that. And he said, I can't remember a time that we've actually called any penalty associated with that. So it's probably unlikely to happen. But I wonder if Texas is gonna ask, like maybe they could institute like a 2-minute period or a certain amount of period for trainers to come out and treat, players or even fans or even coaches for hurt feelings.
Yeah. Mental health therapists on the field.
But they did a horns down. So you're not gonna give me 15 yards, and that hurts my feelings.
Hey, I want to read this text real quick because we're gonna cut this segment short because in a few minutes, Kris Budden from ESPN is going to be joining us. Madden in Houston with an interesting point. He says Saban didn't have Saban to learn from. Speaking about
another thing,
yeah. But most people who leave a legend don't reach legendary status, OB, and that on its own, I think is a pretty worthy discussion.
Well, probably not most, but most people don't reach legendary status.
Sure.
I mean, Tom Osborne followed was it Devaney, Bob Devaney at Nebraska. Great coach. He went from good to better. Barry Sanders followed Thurman Thomas at Oklahoma State.
Right.
So
but I'm saying in the coaching tree, right?
Coaching tree, but
sure. Like, is Kris Budden coming close?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's set a break then. Well, we can continue that dialogue shortly. How's that sound?
Fisher followed Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden.
Yeah, and he won.
And he won.
Right now, if you're looking for a reason to move back to Aggie land, how about the Association of Former Students? They're looking to hire people in so many different departments, marketing, fundraising, you name it. They got a lot of great opportunities to work for a premier organization that has been serving the Aggie network forever, guys. They play a part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here. Don't miss out with opportunities to help out with Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. So if you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone who could be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. And we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance, Studio Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Day 3 of SEC Media Days. Kris Budden of ESPN is with us. Hello, Kris.
Hello. Good to be here. Welcome. I welcome everybody else to Texas, but welcome to Dallas.
Well, thank you. So I usually want to start with football.
Yeah.
But because you covered the College World Series, and I was reminded in your conversation before the hit about some time in Knoxville, how was that series for you to cover?
You don't want to just jump in straight into the Schwab conversation.
I can.
No, it was super fun. My husband played tennis at Tennessee, so my kids came out of the womb wearing orange, so that was super special. They got to come, my husband and my son, for the beginning of it, and then to know what that town in Knoxville and how thirsty it was for a national championship. You know, since I got there in 2008, it was a really long decade of firing coaches, not finding a lot of success, and for all the sports to finally win a national championship, to have it be for Tennessee, it was really cool to see. And just how quickly Tony Vitello was able to get that program to the top of college baseball. It was a really fun series.
That could have been our story, OB.
Yeah.
Could have been the A&M story.
It could have been. Should have been maybe
it's away.
Yeah, maybe if that pop up to lead off the
catcher,
the seventh, maybe if it had been
was it though
located.
Like incredible what the Aggies were able to do with everything that you lost.
Yeah.
And not having the way, you always wonder, like, how's this pitching going to set up? And you had two teams that went through the winners bracket. So it wasn't like last year where LSU won and Skeens didn't even pitch in the championship series. And to be able to do that really without a third starter, it's one of the reasons that I find the College World Series for the men's side just so interesting of how are you setting up this pitching, and can we get 3 outs here and 3 outs here? And what they were able to do without Braden Montgomery, who I saw 2 days ago at the home run derby, just wheeling around on the concourse. He was like, hey.
Well, and to consider everything you just talked about, and a coach who left a few hours later, which adds to the interest. I've been saying all week, to A&M and Texas is already a big deal.
Yeah.
But now we're thinking not only football, we're thinking baseball in the same kind of way, and football can't come quick enough because of it.
Yeah. That whole thing was a whirlwind. They were staying at our hotel, and, that morning I'm headed off to the airport, and the whole team's gathering on the bus, and you're like, do I go say hi? And then hours later, because you knew when that announcement was made from Chris Del Conte that you're making it on this day because you want one of those two coaches. And you obviously knew the relationship with Schloss. I didn't think he was going to go because he makes that statement the night before. And listen, this would have been apocalyptic even without that statement. But then you say what you said at the press conference, and then it becomes nuclear, I don't fault him for taking the Texas job. Like it's not just him, it's the entire coaching staff. It's your future. It's what you're able to bring a place with a big history of college baseball. But in the way that it happened was just kind of unbelievable.
Let me ask you about Coach Elko and A&M. And we believe, and I've used this as a template, what Schloss was able to do with baseball, we think Elko the right guy can make this a winning program. Yeah,
the right guy, the right pieces, a defensive-minded coach coming into a league that has been so offensive heavy. I think this is a big year, because recruiting wise, that was the leg up that Texas A&M always had over Texas. You want to come play in Texas? All this talent that we have in this state, we're in the SEC. We're in the biggest, baddest. It just means more conference. And now that Texas has come in, they can have that same argument. So from a recruiting standpoint, being able to close off the borders of some of the best athletes in high school in the country, I think is a really big year. But I also like the time that you spend around Coach Elko. You get why he brings guys to campus. He is a great recruiter, and he's a guy that people want to play for.
So, looking into this season, in your opinion, what are some of the bigger storylines of SEC football this year?
I was joking. There are so many storylines that we haven't even brought up the fact that Bobby Petrino's going back to the AFL, right? And how crazy that will be. I think a couple things, how many different teams, we all sit there and say Georgia, right, in Atlanta, and then how many other teams? There's 8 or 9 of them that could be in Atlanta. Is Missouri one of them? I'm a Missouri grad, and the way that their schedule shakes out, they're favored in 11 of their games. Do they get the path there? What does it mean for Ole Miss? 2 out of the last 3 years, they could have been in the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs this year with all the talent that Lane Kiffin has coming back, Tennessee's got a great setup with their schedule and who they have coming back. So to me, it's just how many teams could be that number 2 team. Texas, obviously, kind of the second favorite. But at the end of the day, who's it going to be?
Does this feel different, this event itself, not only in Dallas, but just with the two additions?
No, I think when you live in Atlanta or you live in, other SEC states of Alabama, like this whole Texas OU thing coming in, it's a little bit of a shock living here in the state. Like you've just heard about it for so long and you've seen the logos that I've, sometimes I'll slip up and I'll already talk about OU Texas being in the SEC before they actually were. So I don't think to me, it's any different. I think it's a great marriage because of those fan bases, top to bottom, not to disparage the Big 12, but, you go to a game at Kansas, it's not like the SEC. Right. You go to a game even in Kansas State. When you go to a game in Norman and Austin, it is like every other game in the SEC. Like they bleed their school's colors. It's 90,000+ strong. And that's why like that fan base, not just for football, but for every other sport, is really a perfect marriage with the SEC.
Chris, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming by.
Appreciate
you. You do great work.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Enjoy the day.
Kris Budden, they're Sirius and of course ESPN. Right now we're talking Heritage Films. That is Chance McClain's company. They make documentary films for families and for family ranches, family businesses, you name it. Chance is a wizard at telling people stories. He's so good. I did a story with my father. He's 94 years old, and Chance told his entire story from escaping Cuba, being born in 1930, and my mom, and the whole story. He is amazing at doing it. Plus, he also did a Year Flicks, which is a 20-minute video that is more reserved for the youngers, right? Q&A style for the younger kids out there. And it's get to know benchmark videos. You'll love it. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com. The phone number is 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. And we are back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Day 3 of SEC Media Days. Billy Liucci is with us. We expect to have Roman Harper here shortly with us. Good morning, buddy.
He's getting his beard trimmed.
Must be nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going to ask him where he gets that done, because some would say I should probably do that here and there.
He works for ESPN and SEC now. He's got people. Like, they probably bring a crew to help.
That feels like content. Like, just we get a beard trimmer to come into TexAgs.
It could be good content. And do what do you call it? Just one of our NIL interviews, doing it that way.
Hey, by the way.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm seeing a lot of? I'm seeing a lot of Luke Evangelist lookalikes.
There's definitely 2
lookalikes.
That's pretty good.
Seeing a lot of lookalikes. Yeah, absolutely. What's going on, Dave?
I got to ask you about the All-Star game that everybody asked me if you invited me to go. I was like, no.
I did not. I
didn't get invited. No. How was it?
My man Tom got me a ticket. It was awesome. Very nice of him. Thank you.
Good time?
I don't want to out his name, but
that's all right.
Tom, buddy of mine, through Aggie baseball, actually, and baseball in general, and one of his family members was playing in the All-Star game. So it was cool sitting with the one of the All-Star families. It was nice. It was the Yelich crew.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And so we had a good time. I'd never been to an All-Star game. I loved the preamble, the build up beforehand was awesome. Just some of those superstars, just the lineup announcements, the starting lineups. The national anthem was great. The night after, one that sent, poor girl into rehab.
Yeah, I saw that tweet.
And I'm not even laughing about that. It was an awful anthem, but if that was so bad that it drove her to go get help, and you never know what's real or not in Hollywood or, artistry, but if it was, then fine. But Cody Johnson's rendition last night was spectacular. I don't know if you saw it on TV, but
no,
it was terrific. He's always
love
great.
him.
Shout out Howie. But the whole night was good. I got to see Shohei hit a 3-run missile. So that was cool. I mean, you go there kind of hoping you see Shohei and or Judge hit a home run. So you got to see that part. So I had a good time. Last time I was at that stadium, a little more dramatic. It was the walk-off Game 1 World Series winner where Seegers hit the, was it 9th inning home run? And then in the 10th, Garcia hit one. I know you and I as Astros fans don't love that, but they weren't playing the Astros. So it was walk-off World Series ones. You don't see very many of them. So that was cool.
I think because we live in Bryan College Station that we don't hate the Rangers the way Houstonians hate the Rangers and the way the Dallas and Arlington and Fort Worth or Metroplex guys hate the Astros. Like for us, because we kind of get both teams on our TVs and we our friends are from both sides.
Yeah.
I don't have that same hate personally.
Me too. But I am baseballed out for now. It's been such a I was joking the other day. I think even early was like, can it be football season yet? So it's been one of those. So here we are talking football, and I was talking football last night on the way to the game, at the game, coming back from the game, down in the lobby, and it feels like football season's here.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you something that you've said a couple different times this week, but I don't want to say we've glossed over it, but it's been in the middle of interviews. You feel like national media are higher on Aggies than sometimes our own fan base, because when you talk
us,
yeah. I mean, well, I have us. And by the way,
here's what we keep doing. You can't say anything except we're all doing the same thing.
8 and 4, 9 and 3.
We're going floor ceiling. We're like living in that. I don't hear too many people just screaming 9 and 3, to be honest with you. But then you want to say, oh, but the ceiling is 10 and 2.
So you feel good about yourself.
And there's this ceiling, but also, there's this just kind of like underlying level of concern, like, oh, but what if? So no, I think people here, we had a couple people on here yesterday say they think A&M's going to beat Texas. at Kyle Field. They're convinced of that. I've talked to certainly more people than not have said, I think the Aggies are going to win that game at Kyle Field.
Yeah.
They think the rivalry, the home field advantage. So that's a small part of it. And then they're talking about who was it last night? It was I won't say who. We're going to try to get him on today, but was saying he thought A&M was going to be a lot better than people think and a playoff contender. So there's a lot of belief throughout the SEC in the Mike Elko hire. And then I think just like we have a ton of belief in that hire, but I think they think it's going to happen quicker. And that has to do with them. There goes, is it? No. They're going to talk about them. It's my eyes, man. They're going to talk about the talent at A&M. And so they think it happens sooner. Because I think what's happening is they're marrying the fact that there's still talent. If you look at the quote unquote stars on the roster, like a lot of people do, and their belief in Elko, and kind of how low that thing had spun there towards the end of the Jimbo era. They're doing the math, putting those two things together and go, man, this team could be really good really quickly.
Here's why I have caution, okay, or why
I do too.
It's because the first 3 weeks of the season could be a missile, right? An expected top 10 team coming to your home, right? And then you haven't won on the road. Different regime, I understand all that. But Florida is better than – I think Florida's going to be a better team than their record will represent.
And that's another thing a lot of people think here.
That Florida's better than –
yeah. That's another thing I'm getting a lot of from the people around the league. I agree with you. You could go 0-2 in those games.
Yeah.
I think both of those games are going to be fourth quarter decided football games. And to me, it's not that A&M hasn't won on the road in so long, because first of all, they're not going to the hotel a whole extra day early and going to sit in Gainesville for almost 48 hours before they play a football game. So that's my number one. Number two, it is a different regime, different coaching staff. And number three, well, it's not number three, but the reason I think it's a concern is the Swamp is a very, very, very tough place to play.
Yeah.
And they're either going to beat Miami and the roof's going to go blow off of that place, even though there's not a roof. That place is going to be electric for A&M, or they're going to lose to Miami, and that is going to be the most desperate team in college football that weekend that you're playing. And they're going to be desperate, and they're going to be at home. And how many times have we seen lesser A&M teams play up and beat teams that going into that Saturday we don't think they're going to beat because they're desperate and playing at home? So that's going to be a tall order either way. But I still think, with all that said, those are two fourth quarter games. And if A&M comes out of that, Dave, things will get real interesting in a hurry.
If they split those games and get out of September, 4-1?
Okay, win Arkansas.
Yeah. That sets you up for what we're talking about, this 10-2, 9-3 type of year. Sets you up. Doesn't mean
that if you split those, you're going to have to be playing damn good football to finish 10-2.
But
I do what's left on that schedule.
I do believe, and most teams are this story. Some teams go the opposite way. A Mike Elko-led team will be better in November than they are in September.
I think Mike Elko teams are going to be good all year.
Okay.
The first Mike Elko team, yes, I agree with that. Year one, absolutely. New system on offense, trying to get that O-line from really bad to pretty good to outstanding. Maybe that's a trajectory there. A lot of new faces via the portal. I think for this year, that will be accurate. I think we're going to have a lot of ebbs and flows.
They'll just be good.
Yeah, I just think he's going to field really good, and
RC-esque.
The way he coaches his team, I think they'll be a very consistent football team.
Sometimes as a parent, as an analyst, you're too close to the situation to see. So we see these blind spots, right? You brought them up on the air, like not blind spots, questions about wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
What are the national people saying about like where potential issues are on A&M?
I think a lot of them are concerned about they actually, I think, like the receiver position more than us because they've seen the highlights. They've seen the high moments. I think the secondary is a big concern for a lot of people, and the O-line, which we share.
Yep.
we see all the reasons why it should be better. We see a lot of reasons why it could be better, but it's the secondary that we. Okay, perfect.
Not too late, Lucy.
No, you're good.
Actually, it's perfect.
All
but
right.
the beard is looking good.
And then, you know, at the end of the day, I had a little pimple and it kind of got cut a little bit. So that's what, you know, but they had me get right in the corner, bro, like the cut man.
Yeah, like
get me
Rocky.
back in the game. You know what I mean?
You're like, I gotta do TexAgs radio. Cut me, Mick. Well, I hear
Best dressed guy here.
always
Got to be right every time.
And it's not just
Thank you.
here. This is not just it's SEC media days or network. This is everywhere.
Hey, man, Liucci gave me the ultimate compliment. He was like, dude, every time we've been together and then we've been around some young ladies or anything like that, whenever you leave, they're like, he is a handsome looking man.
Wow.
Like,
Who's that? See, he says I never compliment people.
No. You don't compliment me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know you compliment people, just not me.
Well, I'll be at Kyle Field and we're down there on the sidelines and I'm getting texts from girls like, who's that you're with? I'm like, oh, that's Roman.
Hey.
But by the way, we were laughing about, I've got a new side gig.
What's your side gig?
oh, he's
Stylist.
he's a stylist, a fashionista. There's no doubt about it.
What, hoodie and a jacket?
What you have done for T-Bob A-Bear, legendary.
We went
the
shopping.
man is definitely trending in the right direction after being with Liucci.
Do you think he has that shirt on again today?
At some point, it's coming back on. It's
such a good shirt on him.
Yeah, he's putting it back on. It's coming back.
Yep.
Hey, so we were just talking about some blind spots that we think A&M might have. What do you see blind spots, and maybe where do you see some areas like, hey, you better watch out for them here?
Honestly, I think they would naturally be better because I think Mike Elko's better. I think you guys have upgraded at the head coaching position, and it's just kind of happened organically. And sometimes nature runs its course. I think that is what has happened. I think Mike Elko's hungry. I think he's done some really great things. I mean, look at what he did at Duke. If he's anything scratching the surface of what he had at Duke with the facilities and the equipment that Texas A&M has the ability to offer you and other athletes, you'll be just fine. The biggest thing is health, continue to building out depth and time.
Yeah,
you guys have to have time to kind of build this thing out and to kind of build it in the shape or the eyes of the beholder, which is Mike Elko.
Let me follow that up with this because I remember last year you came on this show and you're like, I'm sick of them burning me. All right. Right? You told me that. So was it Jimbo or is it A&M that was burning you?
Well, they were one and the same.
Yeah.
All right. So we will see, because look, it's a couple teams that are out there that you can be optimistically scared whenever you talk about them. Texas, you should be optimistically a little worried. Why? Because Texas has the ability and usually shows us they lose a game that they're not supposed to lose.
Right.
It happens every year. Okay. Any of the Mississippi teams, I've been burned by Mississippi teams. It's like at some point, they let me down every single year. I'm like, dude, they got this game and they don't got it. And it's not me. I'm just the mirror that's telling everybody who they are. Right? I'm just a person looking at, telling you who you are. I'm just the truest and honest version of it. And Texas A&M is another program. And I think without Jimbo, the expectations and the temperature in the room has been let down. You know what I mean? Like you guys were expected when Jimbo's there, it's got to be 10 wins. We got to have this. And then we end up disappointed. And that's what life is like, where the person that has the highest expectations are usually the most disappointed at the end of the day. And that is where Texas A&M was. And since you no longer have Jimbo, you no longer paying that type of money to your head coach, it's like the temperature's been lowered. Yeah. It's okay. Like we're looking at 8-9 wins being a productive, moving in the right direction type of year where you didn't have those emotions the last couple years with Jimbo.
You and I talked last night a lot about secondary, and you were surprised. I was telling you, Roman, I think they've had one corner.
I was
drafted.
Shocked. Couldn't believe it.
I'm pretty sure if you look that up, there's been one corner drafted. He was a converted running back, Brandon Williams.
Oh, yeah.
They've had a lot of safeties. But you said something that resonated with me. You said, if you're not good in the secondary, you're going to lose fast and you're going to lose big.
Yes.
And you look at A&M last year, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah,
Ole
Alabama
Miss,
attacked you guys down the field.
LSU.
Yeah.
Those teams just bombs away.
And go ahead, Luke.
I was going to say, if I told you that I thought coming out of spring, that was the most improved unit on the team, and that was without a Des Ricks who missed spring. And if Mike Elko, who will tell you the real, it's kind of like, yeah, we're going to be really good in the secondary. Then does that trend you more towards okay, if you're going to tell me that, I'm going to get a little more excited about this football.
I will, because you're not going to give up the most explosive plays. And I was telling Liucci, the easiest and quickest way to lose a game defensively is over the top.
Right.
So you got to be sound in the back half, because we can get them to 3rd and 8, and you give up a bomb, it doesn't matter. And it's the easiest way to lose a game is over the top. So, and you have to affect the quarterback with rush and coverage, usually in that order. You guys will have the rush part down. I understand Elko is going to be helping on the defense. What he did for you guys 2 or 3 years ago, outstanding. The jobs that he was doing with mixing up some coverages, doing some different things with the D lineman. I really, really enjoyed watching his defense play. And so I'm really looking forward to that again. And if you guys get the secondary piece going, that allows you to be so much more multiple defensively. We can have more guys that are more athletic, that can cover in space and still be physical enough to play, versus the run game, where we're really just asking these guys to set hard edges on the defense, so then everybody else can read and react and fly to the ball. That is all you're asking them to do. So you got safeties that can be guys that can cover in space, and then also be hard edge setters in the run game, and also my corners being hard edge setters on the defense to really keep everything encapsulated inside. It just really makes you so much better and dynamic when you have good secondary players that can do more than one thing.
Roman, now that Nick Saban's retired, who do you think is the best at using the media to send their message to their team?
As a coach, I guess I would go with, I want to say Kirby, because I think he's just the best coach.
Right.
But it's almost, I may say Lane Kiffin, because his laissez-faire attitude towards the media really just trickles down to the team too. Like, you don't see them trying to get up and high like they used to, the highs and the lows. You kind of didn't see that last year. Just saw like a really good Ole Miss team just win, lose a couple, but you never saw the highs and the lows that you've been seeing. I think Lane Kiffin really getting better and kind of trending and learning who he is and his whole attitude, and being, understanding, like, it is a sense of maturity and a sense of understanding, like, I can just be myself, and then everything else will happen for me. I would say Lane Kiffin. Also, Steve Sarkisian. We were in Austin a couple weeks ago. I know we're on TexAgs, but I got to give him a little bit of love, and only because of what he said. And it was so outstanding for anybody to be that humble and actually that open. And he was like, look, I went through all those troubles early in coaching, and it was really because every day I showed up, I tried to be this. Yeah. I tried to be that. And it was really because I didn't know myself. And now that I'm in my late 40s, early 50s, like, that is where I'm starting to find myself. I know who I am as a person. And when you know who you are as a person, you can't be defined by anybody else's words or opinions. And so that is what I really like about Sark. And like, when he said that, I'm like, man, that was beautiful, because vulnerability equals strength. I do a podcast, NFL podcast, NFL Second Players Acts podcast. And we talk to all these former NFL guys, and their vulnerability when they share these stories about their true journeys and things like that. It really is strength, because there is no rule book or no playbook to life once you hang up the cleats. You got to kind of figure this thing out.
And by the way, for Aggies, listen, great one with Dante Hall.
Yes.
What was that kind of in the last year or so?
In New York. It was awesome. And the human joystick. And like, that's where he told it, he was so thankful for R.C. Slocum. And it was really tough, because at the time he got R.C. Slocum removed him from the team. He was so mad, but he's like, dude, it's the best thing happened for me. Yeah. And R.C. Slocum didn't say one negative thing about me as far as the NFL draft was concerned. And so he told them, he said, look, this was just something I had to do. It had nothing to do with him as a person, but he needed this lesson to be learned. And he was a better player because of it.
Imagine how tough that was for R.C. for him to let a player of that talent go.
Yeah.
When you could have just kind of ate it, but he was like, it's gone too far. He needs to learn that lesson. We were also talking A&M. I want to ask you a couple of SEC questions before you go, but we had a good conversation. We were talking corners at A&M, and we kind of devolved into historically. And I said, well, there is Lester Hayes, who people forget about, but tell us who you think the best couple.
Oh, it's not even a question. AG, my man Aaron Glenn. Yeah. I know AG as a player, as a teammate. My second or third year in the NFL, AG was there. Dude, you couldn't run a slant route on Aaron Glenn. Can't happen. It was like, you're 15. Better not run a slant route versus Aaron Glenn. He was going to take it the other way. And then to see him evolved into the coach, when later on in my career, he was the coach. And he was applauding me for the work I'd done with some of the younger guys in the room, and just continue to see him grow as a person now, a D coordinator. And then, look, man, the dude's he balled.
Mm-hmm.
He was a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
He was in one of the top picks in the draft when the 2 new teams came out for Houston as well.
Texans.
Yeah,
Right.
so he was a first round pick twice.
Yeah.
And he was highest paid like 2 or 3 times. And now he's doing it at the highest level and he's coaching as well. Number one, and that's not even trying to give him credit to be the number 1 of all time just because of his off-field stuff. But I just know AG, his respect for the game. He would give it to Lester Hayes, but in deep down, I know he was supposed to say it would be me. And then also the other guy. Ray Mickens.
Yeah.
I love Ray Mickens too. Ray Mickens, straight up baller. And this is what Liucci and I were talking about. And then that's why I was so surprised when you hear like, man, A&M hasn't put a corner in the league since when? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. They have too much talent. They have too much team speed. And like, you look at them, they play fast.
Yeah.
All these guys can roll. So what are we doing in between the lines or on a day-to-day basis to get better, to really showcase our talents? You know, am I showing guys that I can play zone? Am I showing guys we can play man-to-man coverage? And then also, are we tackling and doing the little things that can really kind of separate us from the competition?
In closing for me, I want to know. So if it's not A&M, maybe it is Ole Miss, but you're talking about these teams that like, man, I get my hopes up. Who are you ready to be hurt by this year? Who are you bullish on entering the season outside of it at the very top of that?
Who am I ready to be hurt? Texas.
Okay.
I'm ready for Texas to hurt me. And it's just because I haven't drank the Kool-Aid yet.
Yep.
I told Sark that too. I said, look, bro, I ain't drank the Kool-Aid yet. How are you going to convince people like me who look at you guys' schedule? You're supposed to be this. Last year, you guys arrived a little bit earlier, but they only got 3 games on the schedule that I'm even thinking about. And that is, all right, they got Oklahoma, which they've lost 8 out of the last 10. Everybody talking about Texas, but Oklahoma's better.
Yeah.
They've been better head up, and historically as well. And I watched their game last year. Oklahoma kicked the crap out of them up front physically.
Yep.
So they got to bounce back, and they're supposed to have a good O-line, but Oklahoma didn't know it last year, clearly. And then they have Georgia at home, and then, of course, they come on the road to Kyle Phil at the end of the year, which I cannot wait to just be a part of that rivalry that I have no idea what it's about. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that hatred. And so Texas is one. The other one is I'm kind of teetering, and that's going to be LSU. I just don't know. Like, I could see LSU being good, then I could also see them not being that. Yeah. Like, I could see that as well. And so it's just really, really confusing because they naturally will take a step forward defensively. I mean, it can't be worse. All right. They bring in Blake Baker, a D coordinator. Hopefully they figure out this whole Harold Perkins thing. He has to show up. He's too good. He's from the Houston area as well.
A&M commit.
Yeah, I heard until the last minute. But they naturally should take a step back on the offensive side because of the firepower you leave with Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, and Jaden Daniels.
Roman, we got 30 seconds. Let me just ask you this. You mentioned Texas every year loses a game that they should win. That's in the Big 12. How does that look in the SEC?
You know, it's going to come down to a battle of attrition. You're right. That is another great point where sometimes you lose a game or you win a game and it takes so much out of you. Man, it's hard to get back up week after week after week. And Texas had the ability in the Big 12 to kind of relax. We didn't have the pressure on versus when we were playing Texas Tech versus when we were playing an OU. So that would be very interesting to see. I do not have that answer.
Yep.
I'm just going to be the mirror here and to let Texas tell us exactly who they are this year. But I'm looking forward to it. And the UT fans, I actually loved Austin. I've loved the fans and the pageantry, but I've never seen a group of fans that have that, like, their self-image of themselves is like so lofty. And I'm like, bro, you guys are like here, but in their mind, like, dude, I'm a 10, I'm a dime. I'm like, but I like those type of players because they actually, you know, if you run a 4.6, but you think you're a 4.4, you probably run a 4.5.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's entertaining either way. If they win and they come in brash and they back it up, it's a storyline. If they come in and the SEC is a wake-up call, it's a storyline.
Yeah.
It is giving us plenty to talk about. I don't think we're talking enough about OU. I do think that schedule catches them.
Yes.
But just like you said, like, Venables impressed me yesterday.
Oh, he's a ball guy. He's a grit and teeth, you know, like, just love it.
Yeah.
You see it in his jaws when he talks about football.
He got them jaw muscles.
Yeah, the jaw muscles just start getting tight when he starts talking about football. I'm like, that's a ball guy.
Yeah, it is.
Roman, thank you so much, man.
Man, appreciate it, man.
Great seeing you as always.
You guys always.
Buddy.
Thanks for having me this morning.
We'll hit a break. We'll come back with a little bit more as TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go hour coming to a close here before we start the 9 o'clock.
Nervous Nick Savage.
Yeah.
Because nervous
Nick is like
energy.
me in the fact that, like, when you say something,
What are you talking about?
he does take offense. Is an immediate offense.
This is fun. I always enjoy cramming as many guests as we can.
Well,
into
you
the
guys
show,
are doing
but-
a great, like, you guys have been kicking ass this week. That's one thing for sure. As far as getting guests and keeping everything, attempting to keep everything on schedule. I know we got about, what, a few seconds?
We got about a minute.
Here's my lasting, to me, the little image is that have the kind of defined this SEC Media Days for me so far. It's not been, now Texas is coming in here today, right?
Yeah.
I'm losing track of the days. It is not Texas and OU coming in. It is the fact that I saw Nick Saban walking outside the hotel by himself on a walk without being disturbed in the slightest.
Right.
Just anonymously walking around. And then last night I saw walking into the hotel about 11 p.m. with one other person. It was Kalen DeBoer and one person walking into their hotel to check in. And there was one lone Alabama fan with a football that recognized him and got it signed. Unnoticed through the hotel lobby. Could you ever, in our history of covering this league, have imagined him doing that anywhere else at any point in time? Or the Alabama, you contrast that with what we remember from Nick Saban. It's insane.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate you. All right. Hour number 2 coming. Loaded hour. I won't even tell you who's coming is next.
Welcome back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio here in Dallas, Fort Worth for day 3 of SEC Media Days. Our good friend Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, with us, wearing, I think, an A&M suit. That's the way I'm going to look at it.
I did it just for you guys, man. I did it just for you guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm feeling very gig'em today. Got a couple questions from some of the Texas folks, so we embrace it, man. Again, I knew I was talking to you guys kicking off the day, so I figured why not?
So how has this been for you? Because this is your first SEC Media Days, right?
Well, so last year was my first SEC Media Days. First SEC Media Days is SEC Unfiltered. So
Okay.
it's been a blast, man. Got in Sunday, obviously been taking in the week. We've been producing content out the wazoo, content bleeding out the eyeballs, like I like to say, everything from reactions to social media to all that. And obviously meeting the most talented creators in the space, which is my favorite part, interacting with, engaging with folks like yourself.
Yeah.
Billy and all the rest of the team and all these other great entities as well. So it's been a blast, man. Really enjoying it.
It's interesting from our position, right? Where you're a content creator, it becomes so much that is like, it almost gets lost, right? Because how do you get so many eyeballs on it? Because they're all really, like, I'm learning about every team that I've talked about. I've talked myself into why they could be great and why they could be terrible and back to great and back to terrible. So today, Florida's hitting the podium. They're not going to be great because of that schedule. But I think they could be really good with a bad record.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could be the best 5-7 or 6-6 team in the country. And nobody in Gainesville obviously wants to hear that. And listen, I think what makes Florida so fascinating, and I've talked myself basically, David, into Billy Napier, I think, is going to be back next year. I think when you look at that roster and you've got DJ Lagway waiting in the wings, and I'm not saying you keep, if you know a guy is not the right guy, you don't keep him around just because of one player on the roster. But the way they've talked about Lagway, I've heard Lamar Jackson comparisons, potentially. Sure. Maybe something you want to ride out. But this year's team, David, to your point, Florida's so interesting because they could start 1-4. They could start 5-0. I mean, I know they've got that big game against Texas A&M. I think it's week 3 or 4 of the season there in the Swamp. You got to kick things off with a win against Miami. That's the big one. You come in as a underdog, but the Swamp will be rocking. We'll actually be there for that game, so I'm looking forward to it. But you got to win that game. You got to win the in-state games right against UCF. That's a big one we were just talking about down the hall. That's kind of a can't-lose game for Florida, right? KJ Jefferson comes in. They beat him last year. So Florida's a really intriguing team. I do see them kind of in that 5-7 range. I think if they get to a bowl game with that schedule, it's a solid year, which is still weird to talk about. This is the Florida Gators we're talking about. They don't go 6-6 and call that a good year, but you got to keep things realistic with the schedule. If they can get to 7-5 or better, I mean, Billy Napier will prove he's the guy for the long haul.
If they're 7-5, he might get Coach of the Year.
David, if they go 8-4, they might get in the playoffs. I mean, realistically, they could be
with that schedule.
They could be a college football playoff team because their 4 losses could beat teams who are all in the college football playoff. Really, it could happen. Now, again, we're talking best case scenario. So, but I mean, it's a big year for Billy Napier, no doubt. Year 3 is kind of the year where people want to see it in college football. Who are you really?
A&M and Florida, very similar at the top of their schedule. The first month of the schedule, they get tested, and they get tested hard. Like, A&M's going to have to go to the Swamp. They are hosting Notre Dame, who's an expected top 10 team. I don't know if I feel that about Notre Dame yet. When you see Notre Dame and Riley Leonard and Mike Denbrook going over there, what do you think?
Well, first off, I think Kyle Field's going to be rocking. We know that, right? I think the folks down in Aggie land are going to want to live up to that #1 ranking on EA, toughest places to play. It's like, all right, let's show the world why that's the correct ranking, right? So Kyle Field's going to be shaking. I think it sets up well for Texas A&M. I think for Mike Elko, I mean, again, you get college game day. You kind of have all eyeballs on you. I like Texas A&M in the game personally. I mean, I think Notre Dame for sure. I think it's going to be a great game, back and forth, competitive ball game. But I like the Aggies. I really do. I think they're going to come out fire and come out running. I think Mike Elko is going to want to obviously kick off the tenure in a big way. And, I'm leaning A&M in that game. And again, you give me that home crowd, that hostile environment, Notre Dame coming in. They lost a lot of pieces from last year. I like Texas A&M. And that could be the tone setter that really kicks things off and sets up the Aggies for a big year. Mike Elko, year 1.
A&M has not won a road game, a true road game, since Missouri 2021, which was the week after A&M beat Alabama. So they got to go to the Swamp. Yeah,
that's
it
a hell of a
sucks. That sucks. All right, I hate it.
It kind of kills the people, the energy to go to these SEC venues. It's like, well, been a while, right, since we had a positive.
And all of them, I think all of them, I got to remember, they all literally they should have won or had a chance to win in the fourth quarter.
I think that fate's going to change for Texas A&M this year.
Will it change in September?
I think it will. We're going to be dropping, kind of spoiler alert, we're going to be dropping on our entity game by game predictions for every SEC team. I believe I did have Texas A&M winning that game in the Swamp. I think I do like the Aggies there. Both teams have questions, obviously, but I think Connor Wegman, the whole, admittedly, I've been someone, any A&M fan listening to this, they know I've been a little bit more conservative than most of my expectations, just because I want to give A&M an opportunity to prove it. I don't think there's anything wrong. It's not about being down and out on a team or what have you. I'm not saying they're going to go 4-8 or 5-7, but let's give A&M an opportunity to overachieve. That's all I want to do. So, if you're talking about expectations of 6-6 and 7-5, and they go 8-4 or 9-3, you had a great year. But most years we're setting that bar so high, and I'm not telling you to lower expectations or anything, David, because we've had conversations about what the expectations and the standards are in Aggie land. But anyways, I think both these teams have question marks. Connor Wegman, I think, as long as he stays healthy, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. And I think the A&M defense, too, not being talked about enough, led by Torre and York. I'm really excited for that game. I do think A&M's going to start. I believe that'll be their first SEC game. Is that the opener?
That's the opener, yeah.
They'll be 1-0 in SEC play after that. I do like A&M in that ball game.
Last question for you. Who is the sleeper playoff team that we're not talking about?
I know you're baiting me to say Texas A&M.
Oh, I mean, look.
Hey, listen.
I changed my mind.
No, yeah.
I think that they could be a 9-3 team. That's what I think. And 9-3 teams can get to 10-2 and get to 8-4. That's just the reality.
Well, listen, Texas A&M could be a sleeper college football playoff team realistically if things click. And I want to get this on record with you guys too, because little secret between you and I, and it's not going to be a secret after this. When we talk about A&M, I think they're going to be up and down. I think year one of a new head coach, I think what people don't give enough credit to, changes in the roster. Call it for what it is. Not everybody behind closed doors is bought in and sold. And so that's one of the biggest fights Elko's fighting, is instilling his culture, getting everyone bought in. I think A&M's going to get better as the season goes. And, I think they're going to be up and down, but I think that final week of the season, I got them beating Texas. I mean, I've got Texas A&M in the home game against the Longhorns. I got them winning that game straight up and pulling the upset. But sleeper college football playoff teams, I think A&M could be one. Realistically, okay. I do. I think
you beat Notre Dame in Texas. You better be in the mix, right?
Yeah, you better be at that 9, maybe 10 win range for sure.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you as always, buddy.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure.
All right, we got to hit a break here. Right now, we're talking QC Kinetics. If you've got arthritic joint pain keeping you from doing the things that you love, well, why? Like, there's options out there that doesn't involve surgery, that doesn't involve drugs. If you got pain in your knees, your hips, your back, or your shoulder, there are these new exciting new cellular therapies that can get you long-lasting relief, and that's our good friends there at QC Kinetics. They're helping patients like you every single day. Talking about cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move once again. And they've helped so many different people here, tens of thousands and more around the country. So if you're living with chronic pain from your arthritis or injury to steroids to surgery to pain pills, there's no longer your only option. What you need to do is reach out to the great people at QC Kinetics. They can enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. Regenerative medicine, restorative cellular treatments are here for your achy joints, and you can do that by calling for a free consultation with our good friends at QC Kinetics. 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That's 979-452-6000. We're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Our friend Dennis Dodd here from CBS Sports joining us. Dennis, how you been, bud?
David, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm a little jealous of people. Let me tell you why. Because at TexAgs, I'm the one with the nice suits, right? But hanging out with you and Roman Harper, like people are bringing their A game here to Dallas.
I'm no Roman Harper.
No,
I'll tell you that.
Not many people are.
I was looking at Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa paper from AL.com. He said, we're dressed alike today. And I said, you married? He goes, yeah, our wives dress. I take no credit.
Hey, so you were talking to Nick Saban earlier. How did that convo go?
It was great. It was a group thing for writers, and we had him on camera too. It was really revealing. I just wanted to find out where his head's at in all this. Yesterday, Kirby, I don't know if you heard on Sirius, Kirby said in a prep call for what SEC Network or something, because it was like talking to Darth Vader. Do I want to share stuff with him? But we didn't get there. But he did say, very revealing. He said he prepped for the draft on ESPN 200 hours. I haven't done anything for 200 hours in my life.
Right.
And that's just one thing. And I talked to the game day producer, and I said, where's he going to be positioned on the set? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
A very guarded secret, because Pat McAfee was in the middle. Don't know if Pat's going to be there or where he's going to be. Can you imagine Nick in the middle of game day?
Wow.
That'd be pretty cool. Well, he's on game day, so that's good enough.
It's interesting because he and Tom Brady, the best at what they do, all entering this new part of their career. And it feels like everything I've read, Tom is attacking it the same way Nick is.
Yeah. It's like, there's part of me that thinks like, why does Tom Brady need to do it? He's got $8 gajillion. So does Nick. But Nick, you get, because like, if you know Nick and you sit there and talk to him, that knee is always tapping, that foot's always tapping. He's on to the next thing. It's all about ball. And in that interview, he said, what I miss is the day-to-day team stuff, interacting with the team. He goes, everything else I don't miss. I mean, he's gotten out at the tail end of, NIL, where it's just starting to blow up. So obviously that was a bother, but he misses it. He's very involved in it. And I like watching him. I don't know about you. I think
he's great.
He got really good reps. If you remember when you knew what he was doing, he would go on game day and stump for his team, whether it was a playoff or BCS, going back to 2011. And that may have been responsible. Who knows for Alabama getting in a couple of times. I don't know. But he was good at it. It was fun to watch.
It is hard to replace a legend. Not often is it done well, but Kalen DeBoer feels as of today like the next logical choice.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian were in there, but I think that, obviously they both got raises out of it. I don't think they were going to go. There are places they're very comfortable with. Kalen DeBoer, I think they targeted early on, because in late November, if you remember the published reports, like he had an offer on the table, a big time extension from Washington, didn't sign it. I thought that was odd. Like somebody was telling him, Jimmy Sexton probably, just wait. He may have known something at Alabama and Nick. So they targeted him right away. Greg Byrne, the AD, went in front of the team and said, give me 72 hours before you do anything. And he hired Kalen DeBoer in 49 hours. Flew up to Seattle, got everything done, everything good. And what I wondered, and a lot of people wondered, this is the ultimate guy to follow the guy. Right. You're never supposed to do that. He embraced that. There's only one person's going to follow Nick Saban at Alabama ever. I want to be that guy. I want to test myself, and I'm confident enough in my abilities to do it.
Is this the Aggie and me talking that I need to see more from Steve Sarkisian before people start putting him in the top 5 coaches?
Yeah.
Because, he's had one really good year.
Yeah. I think he's building.
Yeah.
That first year, 5-7 was not good. It's been a steady climb. And, they got to the playoff, they won the Big 12, fine. We've got the integration into the SEC. Let's see how it goes. I do think they're a solid number 2 in the SEC this year. But when we had that conversation about Texas and OU, it's not a 1-year deal. I mean, let's see how they assimilate.
Sure.
And I think what I thought from the beginning is going to be true. They didn't rule the Big 12 on the field all the time, because combined, they only won 11 titles in 27 years. They ruled the boardroom. And I think that's where people got so upset with that.
Right.
And Nick's already said it. It ain't going to happen in the SEC. They're going to be, in any given year, fourth or fifth best program in that room in terms of juice. Alabama, LSU, I don't know, Tennessee, Auburn, what have you. They're just not going to be.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
How about Mike Elko? Your thoughts on? Look, he's got to prove it, but I feel like he was kind of like Kalen DeBoer, the logical choice for A&M.
Love it. Love the hire. A&M, after all these years of, I don't know, upheaval, I guess you'd call it. They just need solid. Mike Elko's solid. He's a ball coach. He's embraced NIL. Not that he wouldn't, but coming from Duke, that was a thing.
Yep.
I would think. You got to get in the mix. You got to get hip deep and all that stuff. So I love him, and he's a hell of a coach. I loved watching Duke play. You know what he did at Notre Dame. It's a great defensive mind. Maybe bringing back the wrecking crew numbers or stance or something like that. So I love him. I think he's the best thing for A&M.
Do you have an opinion why it hasn't worked for A&M? You've had these one-offs, 12, obviously 20.
Yeah, it's one of the mysteries of the universe, isn't it? That on paper, it's the best job in the country. They got the best of everything. Facilities, salary, infrastructure, resources, but it just hasn't happened. I can't explain Jimbo. I was there for someone, and it just, there was pockets, and Jimbo had the COVID year, which, you can't dismiss, but it was what it was. He didn't follow it up. I don't know. No, it is one of the great mysteries of the universe.
Yeah. Last thing for you. Who's a sleeper team in the SEC that you can see maybe knocking on the door of that playoff?
Well, does Ole Miss count as a sleeper team? They
haven't done it, so yeah.
Right. I wrote about Lane and all that the other day, in that they've got, they've never been close, and there's a cohort of teams that the playoff is going to meet in the middle potentially. If you do what you did last year, you're in. Missouri, Ole Miss, a team like Arizona, maybe a Kansas State. There's others that if you do this again, you're going to be in, man.
Yeah.
And I think that what Lane's done sounds cliche, but matured before our eyes. It's been 13, 12 years since he got fired on the tarmac at USC, but that started a long climb coming back, even with Nick, hiring him and rehabbing his image, and him rehabbing himself. Like, he's gone from, I always called him the boy king when he was younger. He's turned into the portal king. And I think he's gone beyond that, where he said it here. It's like, well, you can't take all portal guys. You got to balance it out with high school guys. That was a very good thing to say.
Yeah.
And he's right, even though they landed the #1 portal class. But 10 starters back on offense, 10 on defense. It would be a dark horse only because they've never done it before. So, yeah, I think Ole Miss.
Dennis, great stuff as always, friend. Thank you so much.
David, thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Dennis Dodd there from CBS Sports. All right, we're going to continue the dialogue here from SEC Media Days. J.D. Pickell is going to be joining us here from On3. We'll talk to him. After that, we'll get a Florida insider in here, Nick De La Torre, to break down the Gators as they're going to hit the podium later on today. A lot of great storylines still developing. And I've seen J.D. speak very highly about A&M, so I'm looking forward to talking to J.D. Pickell here from On3. What's up, man? How you been?
Long time coming now, huh?
Hey,
long time for us to get connected.
So let me ask you a question. A year and some change ago, you started, right? You came on our show, and I called you Pickle, and you didn't fix it, right? And then the second time I had you on the show, I think I was here, and I think I did it again. And then Nick's like, dude, it's Pickell. I've done it to people who call me Nuño.
Hey, well, let me interrupt. I had JD when I guest hosted another show in town, and I said Pickle, and he was like, on air, he's like, hey man, it's Pickell. I was like, well, thanks, JD. You just body bagged me online.
On air, right?
I was like, hey, I'm never gonna forget that.
You got to get it right. And so I apologize for the first two hits, but you stayed very quiet.
Not at all. Yeah, I think I'm sorry that I did that to you, Nick. I didn't want. That's the last thing you want to do is make somebody's job harder on air when you're already reading through a million different names.
Yeah, no.
Now we got Iam Aliava we're all trying to learn for this season.
So I mean, Nico. DJU, like I just first name it. It's just too much. So in a crowded landscape of, look at this place, right? We got everybody is a host and they're all really good. How do you go about picking your topics to kind of stand out? Because you do stand out.
Well, one, I appreciate that. I think a lot of it too is we have great people that work for us on the written side, and so we have a gauge for what's hitting on those platforms. And I mean, as well as anybody, it is so much supply and demand, and so whenever there's a demand for you try and supply it as best you can. But
so you get like an algorithm kind of thing.
Yeah, like you kind of read through what has done well for you in the past. Hey, people are interested in X team right now. Okay, well, let's see why they're interested. Let's give our take there and kind of try and dig deeper into that. And then also, you kind of take some flyers too, especially in the months of April and May. And okay, hey, do people want to talk about this other team that maybe we haven't talked about quite as much? And it's funny because I feel like certain parts of the year where we're past spring football, maybe just before spring football, where there's not quite as much meat on the bone.
Yeah.
It's trickier from a traffic standpoint. But at the same time, if you're doing what you and I are doing and talking about this essentially year round, there's, I think, an opportunity to kind of separate yourself in that way as well. So you'll pick up a couple of extra people along the way that are like, hey, actually, I do want to talk about college football year round. I found this guy in March. Now I'm going in the fall with him. Like, this is great. So
my crew will tell you that I'm a fake tough guy, right? Like I enjoy, like I'm a battle rapper, right? But I'm not really, but I try to be. You strike me as a guy who's like friends with all the rivals, right? Excuse me for using that term, but you know what I mean? Like you'd seem very friendly with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, like being right is overrated.
Yeah.
Like we're all throwing stuff at the wall and saying what sticks, And I think all of us got into this because we, everyone that stayed in this, like genuinely loves this. They love everything that comes with this. They love the rivalries. They love the ugly parts of it. Like all of it is what we're signing up for. And so I think at the end of the day, it's like, hey man, like we're all to some degree, not to be cliche, we're all to some degree in this together.
Yeah.
And so, I appreciate that part of it. And it's a lot easier to be friends with people than it is to have beef. And a lot of times too, like I found whenever I have like made up a narrative in my head with somebody else, it's like
it's not really true, right?
It's made up.
Yeah,
like, oh, we could have been friends the whole time. So yeah, if that answers your question.
How do you handle being wrong? Because I mean, we're all wrong. You just said it, right?
Lots of practice.
Yeah,
lots of practice.
Just keep being wrong.
Keep being wrong. Yeah, I think there's some. It's a really good question. I think to some degree it is being okay with being wrong from the jump and saying, hey, like this is why I think this. This is why I believe this. This is the facts that I am standing on going into this take. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. But I knew that I didn't just throw this out there to get traffic or for whatever X, Y, and Z reason that I can't sleep with that night. Like last season, I came to SEC Media Days. I was like, I think Joe Milton's going to be awesome. I think he's going to be top 5 quarterback in the country. And I was like, physical tools. Josh Heupel knows quarterbacks. That system's quarterback friendly. And so like I can sleep fine at night knowing like, hey, I took a shot. I was wrong, but like, the logic was there in my mind.
But Tennessee's problem last year wasn't his fault per se. It was
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other discussion, but I really think that, the lack of quantity of weapons for him was a big thing. Like Squirrel White's awesome. He was, dinged up at times last year, I believe. Brew McCoy wasn't healthy for a lot of the season. There was no Jalen Hyatt kind of presence. So I think that was probably part of it as well. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the context, especially in our business, seems to sort of fall by the wayside, and you kind of just go back to what you were wrong or right about. And so that's kind of how I approach it.
Industry question again. How difficult is it to maybe assess a team like A&M? Because there are these built up narratives from prior regimes, right? Jimbo to before and, the one-offs, but also understanding how close they actually have been the last few years. And I maintain, I think you get the right coach in there with the right quarterback and the right culture. I mean, there's a lot of what you need, right? But I don't think they were that far off, yet it felt like a million miles away.
And that's the thing that's so tough about A&M, because the brand in itself is such a lightning rod, as you well know. And so anytime you say something positive about A&M, there's the college football public that's heard so many times, A&M is going to be a playoff team. A&M is going to compete for the SEC. And it's like, oh, we're doing this again. And it's like, well, maybe that was something other people said, but like new people now are having new opinions. Like I have never personally been on the train that A&M was going to be an SEC contender, for better or worse. I think with Mike Elko this season, it's a lot of let's lay the foundation. Let's put the right things in place. And then going forward now, past just this season, like, let's get excited about the future. The other part, too, with A&M, don't mean to cut you off, the thing with college football as a whole, so much of it is if you have the right input, you can expect a certain output. And to be fair to Texas A&M fans, like, they've had a great input for a long time, just the output hasn't really reflected that. So all that to say is, I think for Texas A&M fans, like, they're not crazy. They're crazy in a good way, but they're not crazy in terms of what they've been expecting, and the input has been tremendous for a minute now.
So why not this year? And when I say why not this year, I don't mean 10-2.
Sure.
I'm just saying, why not be in that conversation? Like, what do you see as a potential reason for not?
My big thought around A&M is, I wonder how long it takes to gel. Okay. Because I think the talent is there. I think you have the talent to be competitive right away, as competitive as you want to be right away. Obviously, Connor Wegman has to translate to what we all believe he's going to be and stay healthy. But I think a lot of it, too, with Mike Elko, for me, the pitch with him was structure, culture, toughness, all those things. And I think we saw it at Nebraska this past season with Matt Rule. Like, they were close in a lot of games, but doing things his way and being a Matt Rule kind of team at Nebraska hasn't totally gotten there. So I think that's more of a bake than a microwave, to be honest with you. Yep. And so it could be this year. It wouldn't overwhelmingly surprise me, but I think probably the year 2, year 3 of the Elko regime is when I really get excited if I'm a Texas A&M fan.
How do you feel about the top 3 teams? Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss.
It's funny we're saying Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, not Georgia, Texas, Alabama, isn't it? I mean,
and maybe it is Alabama.
No, I'm with you. I would put that exact same order. And I mean, Ole Miss has better odds to make the college football playoff than Alabama. And if you told us that a year ago, we'd be like, whoa, what happened to Nick Saban? I think Ole Miss and the pressure they have to really break through and to have something to show for the roster they have this year is massive. I think that the floor at Georgia is ridiculously high. I think it's them and Ohio State, the national championship picture, as we sit here right now, looking at just the rosters. Texas is really curious because as they move into the SEC, you and I both know if Texas has a year where, let's say, they go 9-3, everyone's going to say, well, hey, that's the SEC for you. It's not the Big 12 anymore. Hey, Sark, like, I don't know if he's really the guy to get them to where they want to go. And so this year for me with them is a lot of trying to validate what they've done previously. And there's going to be a lot of pressure as there always is. But that last game of the year is going to be cinematic. I can't wait for it.
Yeah. And to go back to Georgia, I worry about their schedule.
Yeah.
Does 9-3 get them in the playoffs as Georgia?
It's a really good question. I think I'd look at, okay, well, who else is 9-3? Who's 10-2? And that's, I guess for Selection Sunday to decide on. But I think with Georgia, the scary part for me with this expanded format is the fact that they do get a mulligan. Yeah. Like that they could go 10-2, find themselves in that 7th spot. And I think we've seen Georgia over the course of really Kirby Smart's entire time there. Whenever they lose a game, some teams that kind of wounds them and they get a little bit fragmented and frazzled. I think Georgia treats losing a game like an ice bath. They kind of like wakes them up a little bit, like, whoa, hey, we got to roll now. And we saw that. I mean, you saw miniature versions of that in different parts of last year where
almost losses,
yeah. And then they go out and just body bag Kentucky, and then they play who was it? They played South Carolina really close. I think they were down in the first half of South Carolina. They go out and just run off in the second half against South Carolina. So I think the Kirby Smart DNA is really going to serve them well in this expanded playoff. And 9-3, I don't think they get in, but 10-2, they would be my worst nightmare.
JD, great stuff, man. Thanks so much,
David.
Appreciate you. Talk to you soon. JD Pickell on 3. He does wonderful work. We'll hit a break here. We'll come back. We'll talk to Nick De La Torre, little Florida football here on the program. Right now, though, let's talk about our good friends at Rollo Insurance. They are the guys to use when it comes to your insurance needs. We're going to use them. The boys, they turned 16 a couple weeks back. They still don't have their license because we suck. But that all being said, when they get their license, we got to get them insurance. And I know if I call my guy Morgan, he's going to take great care of me. And by the way, yeah, their headquarters is on Highway 6, which makes them super local and our place, right? Highway 6 in College Station. But beyond that, let's be very, very honest about it, guys. They are going to take care of you no matter where you are. They got offices in Houston. They've got offices in North Texas, DFW area, Tyler, Austin, San Antonio, West Texas, everything west of the I-35. And also, of course, they're outside of Texas. They got 53 offices in the state of Texas, but they're all over the place. What you need to do is call them up and get all of your help when it comes to any of your insurance needs, all of them, from homeowners, farmers, ranchers, hobby farmers, business owners, you name it, and you know what they do. First off, the difference is real. That is their slogan. But their mantra, their mentality is God, family, and country. That is Rollo Insurance. Go say hi to the great folks there. The website is rolloinsurance.com. Call them up at 888-44-ROLLO, 888-44-ROLLO. And we are back. TexAgs Radio. Billy's about to trip. You're good? That would have been a disaster on camera. Good God, I saved his life. Here, day 3 of SEC Media Days. Let's talk a little Florida Gators because that game is coming up third week of the season. Excuse me, it was the second big game. Nick Torre of Gators Online on 3 Network. What's up, man?
Nothing much. It's like a traditional rivalry now, right?
Yeah.
Florida and A&M. Just pencil it in for every year.
Let me just go ahead and tell you how disappointed I was. 5-7 year. Everybody on the team had the freaking flu, and Florida came down. Everybody. We had like 9 players playing. If I remember correctly, you might have a better memory, A&M was doing really well in the first half, and it just kind of caved in that second half.
Well, I've had a couple interesting experiences there. 2020, Dan Mullen, I think, would tell you there were 9 million people in the stadium during that COVID year. That Texas A&M had too many people there. He didn't make it much longer at Florida, but then
that's why.
Yeah, probably. But then that year you're talking about, I got a lot of respect for Aggie fans because it was a down year. The game started to swing and it's fourth quarter and everyone's still there. And I'm looking around and I'm like, I've been to a lot of stadiums where it's a long year, bad game, and people are, hitting the bars. But it wasn't that night.
So when it comes to Florida, I think I share opinion of many. I think they're going to be pretty good. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games. And maybe that was A&M the last couple of years, but there's definitely talent there. I do think Billy is building something, but with that schedule, does it even matter?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's only 8 or 9 guys left on the roster from Dan Mullen that he recruited. So it's certainly Billy's team. And I think Florida has the best roster in terms of depth and talent that Billy Napier's had. And then you look at that November schedule with Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, Florida State to finish the year. So it might not matter. And I think a lot of the questions on the outside and some of the questions we're asking are, is Billy Napier coaching for his job this year? And he might be, but I don't know that there's a black and white number because
how you get to 5 or 6 wins, 7 wins, right?
If 7 and 5, what do those 5 look like? Are you losing by 20 to LSU, Texas, and FSU, or are those tight games? Have you shown improvement? So I don't know that there's a black and white number ultimatum that he needs to get to, but yeah, certainly I think the roster is better. But the schedule makers did Florida no favors this year for sure.
So I've never been to the Swamp. I am going this year, and A&M hasn't won a road game since the Nixon administration. It's been forever, right? It's been since 21. What kind of environment do you think we can expect for that one?
Well, it's early on in the year. So Florida fans will still be excited. If Florida beats Miami, that's their opening game. It used to be a yearly rivalry. If Florida beats Miami, there will be a lot of excitement, and you'll get close to 90,000. The capacity is only 88, but they squeeze people in.
Don't tell Dan Mullen.
They squeeze people into those bleachers. It's a really, really cool environment. I think from the ones that I've been to, LSU and Florida are the top 2 for me. And I've been to Alabama and Tennessee. It's underground almost. When you enter, you're already 30 rows up. So you kind of walk down into it and everything's built up. And I'm not sure what kickoff time is. Do we know that yet?
I don't know if we have.
Might be.
It's an afternoon game, right? Yeah, I think it's like a 2:30. It's an afternoon game. Yeah, it'll be hot.
It'll be hot.
We're used to it. You guys are used to it.
Press box is open. So it's hot up there too.
2:30 Central.
3:30 time. That's 1 hour for me. We have to figure out Eastern and Central time.
Yeah.
It's a great environment. It's a really special environment, especially if Florida's playing well. Sometimes you go to those games and you look down at the sheet after and you're like, there were 85,000 people here. Are you sure? But early on in the year, it should be a really, really good environment.
So I look at that game and Billy has brought it up. He feels if Florida loses to Miami, they're going to be a desperate team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can see it both ways. If Florida beats Miami, that means they're legit because Miami seems to they're like an A&M in that they might be legit too.
I bring it back to 2012. Texas A&M, someone's there. It's Johnny's first year.
Yeah.
There's a hurricane. You don't get a first game. You don't get that tune-up, warm-up game. I think if Florida and A&M played in November that year, that game would have gone very differently.
Yeah.
So I look at Miami, and you got Cam Ward, 18 transfers. You have to go on the road, play in a rivalry game on the road. So I think Florida's catching Miami at a great time, and it's probably the most winnable that game will be. It's just the psyche of the fans.
Sure.
They're losing a rivalry game, but if they can win that rivalry game, Florida fans will have their chest poked out by the time Samford comes the week before A&M. So yeah, if Florida gets that win, I think Florida really needs to win a couple games early.
Sure.
And you get a first-year head coach in back-to-back weeks with Mississippi State and Texas A&M. That back end of the schedule is very difficult. So I think Florida is knows to put emphasis on that first month.
Yeah. Talk to me about Scooby. We're very excited about having him in the linebacker crew. I've heard mixed emotions about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like
in the right environment, he might flourish. He's obviously very athletic. Why didn't it work out at Florida, and what can we expect?
Super athletic. He's just had an issue tackling. And it's not that he's not willing, just not getting guys to the ground. And when you're playing linebacker, that's what you have to do. I think he was second on the team in missed tackles last year. But a great kid, fantastic nickname. And also Jaden Hill. I think Jaden Hill is another player that transferred over. We didn't know Jaden Hill might be one of the most athletically gifted people I've ever seen in terms of running, jumping, leaping. He's had 2 knee surgeries, I think 3 knee surgeries, 2 ACLs and an MCL.
Wow.
They slid him inside, and we thought, I don't know if he'll be able to do that. He had his best season at nickel last year. So those are 2 guys. Also 2 coaches. It's like, like Gainesville West.
Sean Spencer's my guy. Yeah.
I love Sean. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Did he bring his motorcycle out
I haven't seen that yet. No, I haven't seen that.
He had it in Gainesville, and I was like, man, that thing is loud. It fits his personality, though.
Is it weird to cover Florida after being down for so many straight years, a program that's very proud?
Yeah, my first year was 13. So that's the year 2012. Will Muschamp was beating his chest. We were 1 game away from the national championship. Florida has 5 losing seasons in the 11 that I've covered.
Wow.
Billy Napier's the 4th coach I've covered. Yeah. So maybe I'm the problem.
That's how I feel about it. TexAgs. Like, since I've been to TexAgs, it's been a disaster.
Yeah, it might be me.
Tell me a little bit about the roster improvements.
Yeah. So Florida, Billy Napier gets a lot of heat for his play calling. But if you look at the losing streak at the end of the year, Florida was they gave up 700 yards to LSU and Jaden Daniels, and they were giving up 535 points a game, I think, during that stretch. So it was really the defense. And Billy Napier, as a head coach, had never fired an assistant coach at UL or at Florida. He made the decision to let Corey Raymond go, who Florida fans had wanted on their staff for more than a decade.
Sure.
Spence as well. And then you needed to get some depth, I think, and some veteran leadership. So Florida went and got Asa Turner, DJ Douglas, 2 seniors, and they really tried to bolster their room with guys who were sound tacklers, had shown that in the past, and a bunch of guys who had snaps. I think they added more than 10,000 snaps through the transfer portal, so that's something they needed to do on defense. And I keep telling Florida fans that, like, every week you're yelling at me about Billy Napier's play calling, but you have to score 42 points a game to win a game. You're not going to win many football games. So I think defense was really the focus for Florida this year in the transfer portal and then in recruiting.
Is it fair to say people respect Graham Mertz, but also sleep on him at the same time?
Yeah. Last year, Florida fans coming off of Anthony Richardson, the reaction was, why are you going to Wisconsin to get your quarterback? They not only can't spell pass, are not interested in learning how to spell pass or to throw the ball. And Florida fans and even us in the media were down on Graham Mertz. And I think he shut all of us up and proved us wrong. And now I wonder how much of a jump can he make in year 2? He said something to us in spring football that has kind of stuck with me, that last year I was learning my teammates' names.
Right.
And now I'm teaching guys the plays, the new guys in. So I think you go back historically and look, what did Kyler Murray do after transferring? What did Joe Burrow do after transferring?
I got to bring up Kyler Murray, man.
Sorry about that. My bad.
Do that, bro.
But the guys in the second year of a system and the jump that they can make. And I think that goes to show the first question, like, how much better is Florida's roster? I think it starts with Graham and just his familiarity and his comfortability in the offense now. It doesn't need guys with name tags on.
So I'll close with this. When we go through a schedule, fans like, that's a win, that's a loss, that's a 50-50 game, that's a win, that's a loss. So when Florida looks at their schedule and they see that gauntlet, what do they look at when they see A&M? Is it, we'll beat them at home? Or is it like, oh, no? Like, how do they look at A&M?
I think Florida fans right now are penciling in. We'll use a pencil, penciling in a win. I think Florida fans, if they look at the schedule right now, probably see 6-0 to start, 5-1 to start. But the issue with Florida's schedule is you can start 5-1 and finish 6-5 or 5-6, 6-5.
Does that get Billy fired? That scenario?
It's tough. I mean, the way to finish that schedule is just brutal. But again, I think it's not a number. because if you lose to Georgia close, if you go on the road to Texas, Florida's only 2-10 away from the swamp under Billy Napier.
Just
so
beat Texas.
So
Just go ahead.
similar. Yeah.
Or do it. And one of those two is at Kyle Field.
I don't think I'll predict that. If I'm penciling in on the schedule now, that'd be a loss for me. But if you look competitive and if you are competing against Texas, if you can sneak a win out against Florida State, something you haven't done in the last 2 years, those things go a long way. Winning your rivalry games go a long way. So there's not a wins or loss total. I think it's really how they look. But if you can't get those wins early, I said if Florida can't catch wins early, they're going to catch hands late. So they need to pencil in wins against Texas A&M and on the road at Mississippi State, UCF certainly.
Nick, great stuff, man. Thanks so much for doing it.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you in Gainesville here in a month or so. A little bit more than a month, excuse me, a couple of months. All right, right now, FBS Appliance, their team of experts are there to help you with your appliance needs that make your house a beautiful home. They carry all the top brands to make your life easier with appliances that fit any budget. They've been taking care of Texas since 1988. They have all the trusted brands you can imagine with an expert staff, trained installers to guide you through the purchase because FBS Appliance wants to be your trusted appliance store. They don't just stop at sales, by the way. Yes, they can get you the right appliance, and the right price, right? But they offer expert installation services that are carried out by skilled technicians who are factory trained. They understand how difficult it is to get that right appliance in your home so you don't scratch walls. They'll ask for a video beforehand just to make sure they know how to get in there. They are the place that's going to deliver exceptional customer service with exceptional brands. Visit any of their 8 showrooms across Texas or find them online, factorybuilderstores.com, factorybuilderstores.com.
Hey, Luke. That's not David.
Hey, Nick.
What's up?
Not much. Just here at SEC Media Days. This is TexAgs Radio,
Presented by David Gardner Jewelers.
This is the Rollo Insurance Studio, live from Radio Row. And yeah, SEC Media Days has been fun. I hope you all are enjoying the show so far. Just kind of killing time until David comes back.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, let's just talk for 5 seconds, and then we'll send it to his interview with Dari Noka.
Oh, yeah.
Because David ran to the restroom. So, Kate, go ahead, play it. Here's Dari Noka.
Dari Noka's with us. Dari, it's got to be a different SEC Media Days for you, right? I mean, your ties to Oklahoma, it's bigger, it's in Texas. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
This has been fun. Yeah, this has been really fun. I mean, it's funny. The OU and Texas news feels like it was 10 years ago, right? Even though it was just 3 years ago. I'm just glad it's here. I'm just glad it's finally, the time has come. You know, we see the schedules in front of us. They're playing SEC games. They're playing for an SEC championship. But it's cool. It's cool in Dallas. They've done a great job here. It's a beautiful hotel, nice and convenient for OU and Texas both. And it was surreal when it became official that they were both coming to the league. Now it's just the reality, and let's go play some games.
Well, and to play some games, Oklahoma's got a very tough schedule.
Yes, they do.
But that's why they came to the SEC,
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, what are you going to complain about this? And I was talking to Brett Venables in Norman last week when we did the Welcome to the SEC show, and you know, I mean, we looked at their schedule and Texas' schedule, and there's no question Texas is a little bit easier. But he goes, what am I going to complain about the schedule? We're in the SEC. Like, what do I expect, right? I mean, I'm going to replace one tough game with another pretty tough game. I mean, they're ready. I mean, they're going to face it. They have no choice but to face it.
I don't want to say the SEC is wide open, but you look at a team like Georgia, they got a rough schedule, and they're on the road for a lot of their big matchups, right?
That's a nasty road schedule, yeah.
You got Missouri, who doesn't have the hardest schedule, but they need to do it 2 years in a row.
Sure.
You've got teams like A&M that have made changes that we think the right change should result in wins, and in double-digit wins at some point soon.
Thought that before, though, right?
We have, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But the problems A&M has had beyond some of the coaching issues they've had is injuries, right? I mean, you can't lose your starting quarterback every year and expect to win.
No question. I look forward to seeing what Mike Elko does there, and it feels like they're in a good place at the quarterback position. We know they can recruit. We know he's done a good job in the portal. The pieces are there. We talk about, everybody talks about the resources that they have. As I look at A&M, the one thing, and I know A&M fans feel the same way, is they just didn't take advantage when they had when Texas was down, right? Yep. And now here comes Texas again, and like it or not, they're always going to be connected at the hip to them. And I think one of the great storylines this year is who has a better, more positive season in whatever measure you want, wins versus expectations, who's playing for championships, whatever, between them and Texas. Because, listen, I would love for A&M to have been in a better position when OU and Texas come into this league. But it's a new start, and as we know, in this era in college football, you can flip something in a hurry, thanks to the portal and NIL and all that, and nobody's in a better position than A&M is.
I'd love your perspective on this, too, because I feel like what happened on the base.
I'd love your perspective, but you're not going to get to answer it unless you go to texags.com, Dari, and listen to yourself talk about it. All right, so this is what we have planned for you. Tell me if I'm right here, Nick. We've got Billy Liucci for a big portion of the 10 o'clock hour. Is that correct?
Correct.
We've got Gregory Sankey for the last part of the 10 o'clock.
We're gonna go long with him. Let's be real.
And we've got, I hope it still happens, PB, Peter Burns, going to be joining us.
Luke's got to go. I was about to say something weird. Yeah, we got to go.
We got to go. We'll be back. It's TexAgs Radio. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. It is hour number 3, and our good friend Peter Burns is with us from the SEC Network. Who have you known longer, me or Billy?
Well, according to police reports, Billy, but probably you, I would say.
Just go.
We go back to the H-Town days,
2007, 8 years.
Golly.
You were in
Lance
San Antonio at that
Erline,
time, right?
John Pendergrass, that whole crew. Yeah, I was in San Antonio. That's why a little bit. I mean, I call myself a Cajun Texan, born and raised in Baton Rouge, but I lived in Texas for 20 years. So we come up to Dallas. My first memories are watching, Mark Aguirre and Rolando Blackman of the Dallas Mavericks come play. My first game was watching Larry Bird go into the old Reunion Arena.
Holy smokes.
And hit a 3-point game winner against the Mavs back in the day. I used to come down. I used to live in Sherman Denison area, Pottsboro, Texas. So we would come down anytime Nolan Ryan would pitch. Pete Incaviglia, Ruben Sierra, and Odeby McDowell. I mean, all those guys.
You left out my guy, Jose Canseco.
Jose Canseco. I remember vividly watching before he was on the Rangers. David, I like, you have these core memories as a kid. So one of my core memories was we're watching Rangers and the A's. And that was when Canseco was on the A's with Mark McGwire. And so we're top of the first inning. Oakland's up to bat. They get bases loaded. Canseco's up to bat. And this guy behind us with his whole family says, I swear to God, if Jose Canseco goes yard here, I'm taking the kids and we're leaving. And the wife's like, just Frank, shut up. We're going to watch the game, whatever. Canseco goes yard, top of the first. He says, that's it. We're gone. He grabbed the kids and they left.
Guess what? I was there.
No.
Yes.
How crazy is that? Good. I'm glad somebody made sure they knew that story.
I might be wrong.
You might be the kids that left.
No, I was a Canseco guy, Cuban guy. So we traveled everywhere he played. And I believe that was summer-ish time.
Yeah.
Early 90s, 92, 93, let's say. And I got a follow-up story for you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's that year or the year before or the year after. One of these years, July 2nd, 1992, we'll call it. It's Canseco's birthday. The reason I know that because I was a stalker as a kid. I've told the story on the air many times. And they were staying at the hotel next to Arlington Stadium. And I stayed there too. And I met every single player, but I hadn't met Jose yet, right? Find out what floor he was on as a 12-year-old.
That is some stalker.
All right?
Yeah.
And I wait on the floor. He comes out with his wife, Esther, at the time. And I go, Mr. Canseco, happy birthday. He goes, how do you know that? I go, I'm your biggest fan. He goes, well, I'm going to the pool. You want to come hang? I go, yes, I do. I'm in jean shorts and an Oakland A's jersey, which he signs, by the way. I go to the pool with Canseco. My dad's like, what in the hell is happening here? We start throwing the football.
No.
Not hours, like maybe 30 minutes later, there's like 40 kids playing football. He invites us all to eat lunch. All of us.
How cool is this?
20 years later, I'm a fake member of the media because I'm not really in, but I get credentials to the ballpark. Right? Well, sometimes. And he's playing for the Yankees, and he has a media ban. He's not talking to the media at all. I go up to him and I say, hey, I met you years back. He goes, I don't talk to the media. I go, I'm not here to interview. I just want to tell you that I met you as a kid and you left an impactful moment. Blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, I remember you. Your dad was talking to my wife, right? Yeah. He goes, cool. And he walked off. That's how it ended.
Hey, for just him to remember one thing about that means like, all right, Jose Canseco is that moment. That's wild.
My poor audience has heard that story too many times.
Doesn't matter. I hadn't heard it, so I'm being selfish here today.
So LSU.
Yeah.
I've told people, like, I've talked myself into why they'll be really good and why they won't be. Maybe we do that at SEC Media Days. I struggle with losing that much talent on offense. But if the defense is a little bit better, does the offense really have to be that amazing?
It doesn't need to be 2019 LSU offense, right? It needs to be top 20 type offense. It would Garrett Nussmeier and Karen Lacey and those guys. I think they are. I mean, I think they're legit because arguably, I think they have maybe the best offensive line in the country. Will Campbell, Embry Jones, those guys, we saw them as freshmen. They developed. They're going to be no doubters as far as the NFL draft pick. So they're good in that aspect of it. You just don't need to be 70th, 80th on defense. And that was what was killing LSU. It's like there needs to be some type of complementary. I mean, listen, last year, as great as it was, I was there for the LSU Florida game. I saw Jaden Daniels win the Heisman that night. He was unbelievable. It was still sickening. I want to throw up in my mouth when I think about how bad that defense was. Because like for LSU, it's it's almost like, hey, if you guys were watching the Wrecking Crew defense and they were terrible, right? You're like, wait a minute. I remember that win. I remember all these great players. Like that was something about A&M that you held, like the physicality. We might lose. We're going to be in a hell of a fist fight. You're going to be bruised. To see LSU play, lollygag, flag football on defense last year, I don't care how good the offense was. It was still a sickening year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's switch to A&M. Are you bullish on them? Are you have a lot of question marks?
I think they have as much of a ceiling and floor, gap as big as anybody. And I don't think the floor is 5 or 6 wins. But what I mean is that I think there's a lot of talent, but I don't know how it pairs with everybody else coming into this league, with the way the schedule is set up. Everybody all week long has said, hey, who's got the most pressure on them all year long? We've heard Billy Napier and Sam Pittman because they're kind of on that hot seat, or Kalen DeBoer replacing Saban, or maybe even Kirby, just keep that excellence going. I think it's Mike Elko.
Really?
I think Elko, I said it on my show this morning, I believe it all year long, that Elko is in the most pressure-packed situation because A&M had a decade-plus head start on the team that's always been a rival with Texas, and it always felt like they had gotten to that same plateau. In fact, not even better in some ways because they were part of the SEC, and you saw the fan base, you saw the facilities, you saw everything. But now with Texas coming in as a national championship contender, I think the pressure is all on Elko to make sure that you do what Jimbo Fisher was not able to do with that talent, which is overachieve. I don't think we could ever look at those rosters that Jimbo put together. We could say he achieved a lot when it came to recruiting, but it wasn't there in wins and losses. And even 2020, it was a weird year.
Right.
And so for me, you don't want to have this big step back, especially when that team that has been, at the forefront, chomping at the bit to get in and back in and play A&M. You want to make sure you're not losing any footing.
So we all have these talking points when it comes to schools, right? And when I think of Texas, I think of a team that has all the talent in the world, but this is not the first year they've had that. They have a very manageable schedule, an easy-ish SEC schedule.
It's tough. Because I thought the same thing too, David. Like I went through and I was like, okay, it's Texas and stuff like that. But I mean, look at even out of conference. They go at Michigan in week 2.
But it's not the Michigan that we saw last year.
But it's still early in the season. It's still Ann Arbor. They still got players on that team. And then oddly enough, as stupid as this sounds, having UTSA the week after is the biggest trap game in the history of trap games because Jeff Traylor runs a damn good program. In fact, I've been on your program. We talked to Liucci. Had Elko not got the job, I thought Jeff Traylor would absolutely home run, grand slam Jose Canseco that hire if had they not gone with Mike Elko. So I think that's going to be a weird spot for him. But again,
well,
there's
for SEC standards, having road games at a down Arkansas and a down Vanderbilt every year, to me, it's more manageable than Oklahoma. But here's my thing about it. This is where I have questions. If in the Big 12, there's always a game or two that like is either down to the minute, right, or down the wire, how does that translate in the SEC?
You heard Saban talk about it. Saban, now, mind you, Saban did pick Texas and Georgia to play in the SEC championship game. But he says, if you think that you're just going to run in here and run the SEC, you got another thing coming. And it's one thing if Peter Burns says that,
right?
David Nuño says that, anybody else. When Nick Saban says that, conquered the game. I mean, he's done. He beat it on the hardest level, and he's done. If he says that, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I listen, I was down there in spring, down there a couple of weeks when we launched them into the SEC. They look every bit as far as Georgia did the last 2 years, or Alabama did when they were at their peak of winning championships. Ohio State, like the best thing that happened was A&M or Texas getting their ass whooped by Arkansas a couple of years ago. Remember when Arkansas ran for like 333 yards on them, destroyed them? And Sark told me that in the spring. He's like, I don't know if we don't get beat that way, that I truly understand that if we're going to be joining somewhere else down the road, we need to get ready. And it's the line of scrimmage. Like enough of this patty cake football. That was the former Big 12 football. I ain't going to cut it here in the SEC.
Am I making it too simple? I look at Arkansas losing KJ and Rocket and, Sam probably coaching for his job in the first month of the season and think, I know they got some new players and I know they got Bobby Petrino, man, but I just don't see it.
they're caged animal. I mean, they're back. I mean, they're wounded with their backs up against the wall. I don't know what they have to lose. And that's kind of sometimes the most dangerous opponents is when you look at it. I mean, like, think about like even Les Miles back in the day coaching against A&M and the job that, that kind of end up saving him for at least one more year was like, I'm not going to run the same offense. Like if I'm Sam Pittman and Bobby Petrino, I'm not developing. I'm not looking at 3 or 4 years down the road. I'm like, every single game could be a pink slip type game. Let's go have some fun. And that's kind of dangerous when you talk about those guys. Now, Taylor Green, I don't know, quarterback, they say he's kind of KJ Jefferson-esque, but they just lose a lot this year, and I think they're going to struggle.
Yeah, let's talk about Alabama and Kalen DeBoer. You replace Saban, he moves on. Yeah, it's always going to be like, but it's not Nick Saban. But this guy checks all the boxes for a first year, doesn't he? It's just different, man. Yeah. Like it's just that's he walks in and he comes over and says hello and he smiles, and I'm like, man, I was just had coffee with Nick Saban, who's now my coworker, and I was like shaking. Right. And Nick looks at me and like, I don't know what the hell I just did wrong, but I don't, like there's almost a breath of fresh air in Tuscaloosa. And I said this on Get Up a couple of days ago. People were like, what the hell are you talking about? I think Alabama is set up better for the future of college football under Kalen DeBoer than they were with Nick Saban. That's not to say that Kalen DeBoer is going to win as many championships or whatnot, but I think Saban, this NIL, this transfer portal world that we live in now, David, is not a sport in which Nick Saban wants to be affiliated with. Yeah. He can bend his mind, he can adapt to RPOs or fast-paced offenses. I don't think he was ever going to bend the wheel to an 18-year-old kid sitting in Nick Saban's office and going, Coach, unless you can pay me $650,000, deuces. Right. He wasn't going to do that. And so I think he's good. They're going to be solid. Milroe's going to be a problem. There's 6-7 teams that I could say that legitimately should be college football playoff teams. A&M being one of those teams this year. I want to follow up the Nick Saban thing, that just talk about how awkward and weird that is, that a guy that you look up to, right? Regardless of your affiliate. And when you work with them, it's like, you almost don't want to, like, take me through that. Like, you're having coffee with them. It's like, how do you talk?
Odd because, I remember a couple of years ago in Atlanta for SEC Media Days, Coach Saban, I know obviously of him. I'm thinking he knows who I am and stuff like that. And I come up to him and I know he's a huge golfer. I played college golf. I'm like, oh, we're going to have this connection. And I started talking to him. I was like, hey, it was right after the Ryder Cup. And I knew Justin Thomas pretty good as a friend. And we start, JT did this. And he looked at me and he goes, and just went on his day. And I'm like, man, if I can't cut through in July with this guy, I'm never going to. And years pass by, talking to him yesterday, he comes up and he's like, how you been playing? I'm like,
oh, he remembered.
Tough. Like,
yeah.
He goes, yeah, you playing any good? I mean, it's not you and me or Billy chopping it up, but I'm like, this guy's talking to me now. Like it's so surreal. But I watched him and his commitment to excellence, Nuño, is unbelievable. What they do is he'll sit there and he'll look at every rundown like it's the script at halftime of a national championship game. And I'm like, well, that's why you're the greatest. Like,
he analyzes like when the ins and the outs are and who's coming in and what he's following.
He'll rundown and he's not even on a segment. And he's like, so what are they going to do here? It's like, okay, they'll talk about this. Okay, what does this mean? And I'm like, well, Coach, you don't have to worry about that. He's on there. He goes, no, I need to know. I want to know what it means. And I'm just like, his brain works in a different way. So it's cool. I mean, it's excellent. And there was a conversation yesterday with him and Paul Feinbaum, and it's just interesting. Paul has a tendency to talk down to a lot of people, even coaches, stuff like that. Yeah. But then when you hear Paul has been doing it for so long, kind of like, this is now my coworker, and yet I'm still kind of kissing his butt on air. You realize we're as good as Paul has deserved his kudos at the top of the game. You start looking at Saban, you're like, that's the Godfather. He's the E.F. Hutton. Like when he talks, people are going to listen.
Peter, let's end this with a soft and cuddly question.
Love it.
And we've done it before.
I'm always big spoon. Billy Liucci is small spoon.
We talked about the way things were for 1560 the game, all those guys that you mentioned that we were super tight.
Yeah.
I see the exact same thing at a much higher level at SEC Network. The relationships, the friendships that you all have, like all of you are like,
we're boys.
And Alyssa and everybody, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, we always joke around. We have like a credit card roulette dinner each night that I started a couple of years ago. It's always fun, and it's one of our big deals. And I remember vividly when they were hiring for the SEC Network, me, Marcus Spears, even Laura Rutledge, some other people had never done TV. And they're like, wait a minute, why'd you hire us? And Steph Drewley, who hired, she said this great quote. She goes, listen, I could hire anybody who's done TV before. I've seen their tape. She goes, I wanted to hire people that if I was stuck in an airport for 4 hours, would I enjoy my day?
Right.
And she's like, I could teach people how to do television. I mean, I think I somewhat know how to do it after a decade now, but she goes, I can't teach camaraderie and fun and making things easy. And like, you guys genuinely like each other. And she's like, I'm going to roll with y'all. And it's been awesome.
So did you apply for that? Did it come out? Because I mean, you were a radio guy at the time, right?
Yeah. So I owned my own sports media, kind of owned like a TexAgs version of Denver Sports that did TV, radio, stuff like that. And I was living in Denver. So I brought my entire staff to the Super Bowl in New York City, did my show that year, 2010. I think that was when Peyton got the crap kicked out of him by the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson. An agent saw me. They're like, you ever done TV? And I was like, nope, I would love to. Like, all right. So I signed with them. 2 weeks later, I went up to ESPN, met with a bunch of people, thought I was going to kind of fill in for Around the Horn with Woody Page. And they're like, we're opening this network called the SEC Network. Any interest? I'm like, dude, I'm born and raised in Baton Rouge. And I actually turned down the original audition because they were like, well, we're hiring for the anchor. I'm like, well, I mean, I could do some radio, I could do some reporting or whatever, but I've never read a highlight or a teleprompter. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And I turned them down, and my agent called. They're like, what the are you doing? Like, I don't care what, you could, boom goes the dynamite, throw up on yourself, like, go. So I went to Charlotte, audition, like the whole audition, dude. I was like, I'm so sorry about what's about to happen. Like, this is just a bucket list. You guys are going to laugh at me. If I can get the tape, we're going to make fun of it on my own show and stuff. And hell, 10 years later, road goes on forever and the party never ends.
Dude, you're smooth. You're great at it, man.
We have some fun, man. And that's what, at the end of the day, I realized, and Sankey told me that, and some other people told me, they're like, if for no other reason, when you screw up, which I do a lot, you roll with the punches, and you're like, people had a tough day at their kids, their life, politics, whatever it is, 4 kids, whatever it may be. But they go into TexAgs or they go into SEC Network, and they're like, get me away from the real junk. Like, as long as you don't take yourself too seriously, which I definitely don't, go have some fun, and we're doing it.
Peter, I appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Always, buddy. See ya.
Great seeing you, man.
Got it.
Peter Burns here on TexAgs Radio, SEC Network. Great. All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back. I believe Billy will be joining us. Right now, Milliken Reserve Time, they are a farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces, and their mission is to build a healthy community around nature. They've done that by dedicating their time to conservation and of a healthy community. They've got respect for that native landscape and, of course, wildlife. The beautiful part is they have 2,600 acres of open space, 30 miles of trails and homes. They want to connect families to nature and to each other. They have a beautiful network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks and ponds and gathering areas, and all the animals you can imagine, the white-tailed deer, the songbirds, the rapids, the turtles, and homeowners at Milliken Reserve sharing a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation, you're coming back to that pristine countryside place. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. Again, that website is millikenreserve.com.
All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I think there's a bit developing here. Billy's here with us. Cole Cubelic's here with us. Cole, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. So yesterday at 4:27, I get a phone call as I'm leaving the hotel about doing a hit with Cole. And I was like, okay, it's going to take me a little bit to get back there. And then I hear an exchange.
AKA 2 hours of treadmill time before you could get back there.
I'm not a big cardio guy, believe it or not. I'm not.
Okay, so I'm going to call BS on that.
Okay.
Because I told Liucci yesterday that every single time that I have been at SEC Media Days and gone to the hotel gym, I have seen you on the treadmill.
Yep.
Every single time.
I do 15 minutes of warm up before I lift weights every time.
I don't believe that, but okay.
I have the miles to prove it on my app. He knows how weird I am. I got everything.
Did you know, Cole? What I have not.
Actually, the miles wouldn't help because your 15 minutes would probably be 3 miles ahead of where Liucci and I were in 15 minutes.
Well, this is true. This
now,
is true.
here's what I will tell you. This guy to my left has tracked and written down and documented every workout he's done over the last 20 plus
since 2002.
20
yeah.
plus years.
Yeah.
So if you don't think you're dealing with a lunatic, let me introduce you to Uno.
And meals.
And meals.
And I have a
You
a
write
scale.
down your meals?
Yeah, not here. No, here I'm just eating. Whatever it is, it is. You went with me to eat. I had every chip possible.
Yeah.
What is your background? Military?
No. No, but I love David Goggins and Jocko.
It is. It may as well be.
Did you play sports growing up?
I did.
Did you play in college at all?
God, no, I was terrible.
Just asking, but
No.
like that kind of organization doesn't really just happen a whole lot. Even if you're OCD, that level of just keeping up with things is not real.
It started in my 30s. In my 30s, I decided that I wasn't any good at anything. So I felt the only way to be really good at something is to have a process and follow it. And even still, to this day,
ladies and gentlemen, Coach Saban.
My problem is I like to eat too much. So
Same.
I like food, and I started last summer because I saw like Marcelo and Staples. I'm like, all right, you got to help me do, like, how do I lose this weight? Steps and calories. I'm like, all right, cool. So I was doing 20,000 steps a day for about
20,000
4 straight months. Yeah, I know, it was stupid.
Yeah.
Last summer, and I got to 250 for the first time since probably middle school, honestly. And I was 249 for one day, and I was like under 252 for almost a week. And it's just almost impossible to maintain. Like it's just, I got to be perfect. And the thing with the steps is it takes time.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, 20,000 steps a day is about a good 60 something minute walk, and then another 45-minute walk. And then maybe my wife and I were walking at night after the kids went to bed. We'd lock the doors and kind of go back and forth on our street. And that's about another 20, 25 minutes of that.
Yeah.
And you're still getting close sometimes.
This is funny because we had this same kind of conversation.
My goal every day is like 10, which is much more, 5 miles is much more attainable. If I get to 7, I feel like I've had a really good.
Yeah, even 15 is like super intentional. Like you have to say, okay, I have to go walk now.
Yeah.
And it's not the same on the treadmill. It's not. For some reason, it's always a lot slower. But anyway, nobody cares about this stuff. I think it's entertaining that you don't think you spend a lot of time on the treadmill when I know you do.
I used to do Ironmans, and now I don't. Now I'm all about strength training as opposed to the cardio side.
Okay. I have no desire to deadlift or squat or front squat or power clean anything again for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So when you've been told to do that as much as I was, it's not really a cool thing.
That's why I don't understand Seth McKinney in CrossFit. And he's an O lineman, and he was a center, and you guys are of a similar build, and he looks incredible right now.
Now, see, I did that.
But
I
he
did
does
CrossFit for a while, but I shredded my back.
And he shredded his hip.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an anti-CrossFit
They'll come at
podcast.
you.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a community.
I tried it one day and hurt my knee.
I don't do it.
All right.
But here's the thing: when you are, like, take Seth for example, me for example, when you did the things that we did, number one, you're good at a lot of it, and number two, you probably want to get some of that weight off. You're going to be able to do that pretty quick, and then the competitive aspect is what's there. That's why I like Peloton, because I can text Boog and like,
who's
he's like,
better?
all right, we'll go ride.
Who win? Like who's a better?
I win more, but he would tell you that I cheat.
Yeah.
Because I don't follow the class. I put it on a much higher resistance and just crank it out. Whereas he kind of does exactly, which there's no way he's doing the numbers that he says when he's doing exactly what the instructors does, but he tries to follow the class. I don't.
Well, Booger's removed. He's NFL now. He's like it feels like he's kind of in this little area where he can cheat, and it's just all on Twitter, and who knows what's to be believed at this
No,
moment.
he does it. He's good at it, but
He
it's
looks good.
no, it's like Dvorak's on there. There's a bunch of coaches on there that I kind of go compete with, and I can go find a class that somebody's taken and say, all right, my goal is just to beat them.
Yeah.
And that like internal motivation, competitive drive is perfect for people like me and probably people like him. But then you have 3 back surgeries and you can't do that stuff anymore.
Well,
So
Nuño, maybe you should do Peloton. Maybe we both should start Peloton.
We can do it.
Peloton competitions.
I see my future being very bright there compared to yours.
Well, there's a lot of things I see my future.
you would
being
follow the
bright.
class to a T.
I would 100%.
Revolution. Okay, turn it up. Grind. It's like, yeah,
99 RPMs. Let's go.
There you go. Yep.
I won't eat. We'll talk other things now, but before we go, the guy sitting right here, Nick Savage, will tell you
why
this guy
hold on,
takes
but wait, I
competition
got to
a
ask you
little too
quickly. Like,
seriously.
is it because it's day 3? He's allowed to be more casual?
Yeah. Have you seen? Notice the decline?
It's like it's not just him.
By
the way.
tomorrow, he'll
It's-
be in one of these Omni
It's all
robes.
media. It happens to like the whole group. Like everybody's like, hold on, I'm out of clothes, and it's not even a polo anymore, and more shorts. And so, I mean, he looks like he's about to go wrangle some steers or something.
I'm telling you, by tomorrow, they'll be in the Omni robes walking around.
Exactly.
Axel Foley. All right. We got to hit a break here. Cole, thanks for stopping by, man.
I felt bad that I had denied you the opportunity to sit down with you, and I didn't want.
I would have come back. I would have just been in a Batman shirt and shorts.
I didn't want you to have a bad interpretation of me. So, and I'm sorry we didn't talk more A&M football.
We did that yesterday.
And I bailed on that interview at the end too. So
TexAgs.com.
Yeah, that's like
I
30
just
minutes.
I just left, but I had to go. So yeah.
I've got you had Feinbaum yesterday. I've got the perfect Feinbaum slot. I think I'm 5:30 tomorrow.
No,
I think
they did that to you.
it's
They probably
it might be
figured
five.
he's local because
Yeah.
people who don't think Texas is just one
Well, it's
thing.
because Elko's last.
Yeah,
But
you're going to be the guy with like the 2 reporters. In there,
waving in the
waiting to see
background.
who's the last one.
But
to
I
leave.
think
Yeah.
I'm Thursday. I think I'm 5 right after Commissioner Sankey. So
Oh, that's good.
maybe that's a good slot.
I'm surprised Sankey's sticking around that long.
Sure. That's true.
All right. Awkward ending. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate you,
welcome.
sir.
Thank you guys.
We'll be back. It's TexAgs.
Slow motion. See Jordan Rodgers walking his way over here. It's TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, day 3 of SEC Media Days. Billy Liucci still with us. And our guy, Jordan Rodgers, is going to be joining us here in a moment from the SEC Network. Always so gracious to join us here on the program. And there he is.
I like it. What's happening, buddy?
Good. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
What's going on, fellas? What's up? Just chilling. You, how many more days you got in Dallas?
I'm out tomorrow morning.
Okay, nice.
We got a little dinner thing tonight with the brass, so I'm gonna go to that. And
Do you know where y'all? Well, I don't want you to.
We're
say-
staying here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to put it out there. I'm surprised they didn't put you in charge of picking the Dallas restaurant.
Dude, down here? I don't know anything
no.
down here.
Yeah.
You want to go to Uptown or something?
Right.
I got a few spots.
You and I should have planned something
Yeah,
separate.
seriously.
Been the like party hosts. I know you got just a couple minutes, so
yeah, I got time for you.
We'll do a. I'll get you on in before the season.
Yeah,
we'll do a deep dive. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was something we were talking about yesterday, and I know we were talking about last time you were in College Station. The night before, we were talking about Connor Wigman.
Yeah,
and then that injury against Auburn, and no one's seen him since. So there's when you see all these lists and all this shit, there's not a lot of chatter. I know you had him. I think you slotted him around 5.
Yeah.
I just want let the Aggie fans hear Jordan Rodgers, no ties to A&M, no ties to Connor. What you think when you see Wigman on film and in person?
Yeah, putting together the quarterback list was really tough, and I told people I could have put Connor higher, honestly, and justified it. I went back all this past week and watched every snap I could of him, and I just kept coming back to that Miami game. And I get it. Aggie fans know you lost the game, 48-33, whatever it was.
Yep.
You will not find another tape from last year of any quarterback in the country, especially in the SEC, that has a better big-time throw film out there. I mean, it was unbelievable. The throws that he was making under pressure, there was guys free rushing through the A gap, and he was running for his life, but he stuck his back foot in the ground with guys in his face and was ripping intermediate throws downfield. I mean, he was laser accurate. The first interception was a slip. The second one was last play of the game. So those are non-issues for me. I mean, he was as dialed as I've seen anybody. And that was kind of that first time, too. I felt like the offense was starting to do some things to build around what he does best, letting him be in gun, getting the ball out of his hands quick, a lot of movement pre-snap. And I'm like, whoa, we're kind of onto something here, right? And then obviously he got hurt. So I think with Colin Klein and what he'll bring, his unique perspective of creating advantages, especially with the tight end position and some movement pre-snap formationally, he's going to have a hell of a year. I think Connor is. I think so highly of him. And like I said, I probably could have moved him up a couple slots because of the lack of body of work. I knew I'd get heat, and I was like, I'm going to put him here. But I tell you what, I love the kid.
And you mentioned Colin Klein. I watched a little K-State. I remember him more as a player, but I know what Mike Elko thought of him because, at that finish line, and LSU fans didn't want to hear this at the time. Then I think they come to realize there was kind of some friction there. Denbrock, he was looking to leave, and A&M's actually going to play him in week 1 now.
Yeah.
But that was kind of what it came down to. And Mike Elko sat down in Denver with Colin Klein and walked away from that thing going, that's the guy. I've got to get him. And I think felt very fortunate he was. What do you see in Colin? You kind of alluded to it, but what do you see in Colin Klein offense?
What I love is when you go back and watch, even the last 2 years of offense with Colin is how much it kind of looks different at times based on what they do best. And the core concepts are still there, and what they do with personnel and formations and movements still there, but they adapt it. And that's what I love, because I was as loud as anybody is saying that Jimbo wasn't changing anything for years.
Against Bama.
Oh my, exactly. And I did so many deep dives into the numbers of that. It was crazy. But so I think his ability to adjust is one thing that Elko loved. But you know what? I was going back and reading and listening to interviews of Elko, him locking himself in his room and just watching every snap. There's not a better indicator of, do I have the right guy, than one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire country, and Mike Elko going, I don't like game planning against a guy like that.
Yeah.
Right. That's all you need to know to go, hey, we got a guy that can create some advantages. And with the talent that A&M can get, that's all you need. Right.
It's funny you say that. That's why Jimbo Fisher hired Mike Elko.
Yes.
It was Elko at Wake Forest versus Jimbo at Florida State, all that talent they had at FSU and the fits that Elko was causing Jimbo.
But that's what A&M hasn't been.
right?
Yeah.
They've lined up in 2x2 and 3x1 and said, we got great athletes, which they have, but we're going to stick Evan Stewart over here at the X to the boundary, and we're just going to let him try to win. What?
Yeah, the forgotten
And then
man
you flip
out
on
there.
a tape like Missouri, and Luther Burden moves every single snap from one side of the ball to the other, different formation. Like, everyone on the field knows they're going to try to get it to Luther, but still they're able to.
Yep.
Why?
Yep.
We just haven't been able to see that at A&M with the talent they have because of the scheme. So I think we're going to see. I wish Evan was still here. I think everybody in Aggie Land does as well.
He might do some things at Oregon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But they got some dudes still that are super talented that I think are going to be showcased in a different way.
Jordan, you have one more?
I was just saying, before we let you go, non-A&M, who is a team outside of the Georgia, Bama, and I'll even say Texas because they're preseason pickup. Is there a team that you're just bullish on to make that move up into contender status, whether it's a great jump or a small one?
I mean, is Ole Miss too much of a gimme? It kind of is too much of a gimme.
Yeah,
I think.
maybe.
I'll give you one that I don't think they're moving into contender stage, but I thought this last year. I thought Florida was a much better football team than anybody thought. And when you go watch the tape, they just are, and they were. And Graham Mertz, I think, is greatly underappreciated and overlooked as well. So I think their schedule's just brutal, though. So are they going to go win 8 games? No, probably not. But they're not going to be an easy out for anybody. And I think A&M goes to the swamp. Right?
That's a perfect way to close it out. Week 3, you guys. Probably the next time we see each other.
Oh, yeah.
Gainesville.
Yeah, we'll probably be there. I think shouldn't announce where we're going to be week 1 yet, but we'll probably see you there.
Perfect.
Jordan, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much. We'll get you on soon.
All right, buddy. Always.
Time to end the day with Double Dave's. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggie Land since 1984 with your favorite pizza and world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance. Studio Day 3 of SEC Media Days here in the Metroplex. Billy Liucci and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey with us. Hello, sir. How are you?
Well, it's good to be here. Great to be in Dallas.
Thank you for coming.
How'd you enjoy the All-Star game last night? I was there.
I was encouraged walking around like sixth inning that they were thinking about bringing back the home and aways that they wear. I think the uniforms would be a nice return, right?
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
So you know that's Aaron Judge out there. You can tell because I'd love to do the math calculation, the starting 9 for each team. Like, what is the salary value?
Oh my gosh!
And you talk about talent.
That's unbelievable.
And it was pretty cool. I was at the home run derby, sat right behind Paul Skeens, and to see a guy who was a year ago in Hoover pitching, and we're all around the league, started for the national.
Starting.
Credit to him.
I keep seeing he is rapidly emerging as a Cy Young contender / favorite, even as a rookie. It's insane to think he was pitching in Hoover.
Yeah, and
15 months ago.
You see Pudge and you see Nolan roll out there along Fergie. We lived here, and I would go see Nolan pitch when we first moved here in the early 90s. Every time he was at home.
Yeah.
In Arlington Stadium,
Oh, yeah.
the ballpark, and then to have Globe Life, you appreciate air conditioning. Like remembering how much fun it was to go to those prior 2 places, but man, it was hot.
They were making fun of me for wearing a long sleeve shirt. I said, guys, it's inside. I was at the original stadium. And at least there was a little breeze there as opposed to the last one.
Yeah, my first Rangers game was April of '83.
Wow.
In college, and I still have the program with Jim Sundberg's autograph.
How exciting is this for you? Having this here for the first time. I know recently it started to move around, but having it in Texas and look, it's been a couple years since OU and Texas are coming in, but it's finally upon us. How big of an event is this for you to it's finally here? You guys have welcomed in.
Yeah, the effort to be in Dallas was made around 17. This was going to be the first location on my mind to relocate media days away from Birmingham.
Okay.
I thought the view is we were west already. You think about the timing, it was Jimbo's first year, whatever. I think it was
18.
Yeah, we didn't know that, but the effort was to be here in July of 18. It would have been perfect. Alabama had won the prior year's national championship. They played Georgia, and we just logistically could not find the venue and the space at the right time. And we kept working on it, and then COVID and expansion had said we just need to be in Dallas the first time that we're at 16, just given what's happened. So having tried to do it for like 6 or 8 years, it's rewarding to be here. And then kind of a 3-year lead in to be a 16-team league. It was the right time to make it happen. And my sense is it's been successful. I think we had the number of credential requests was still up. We've got a lot of our core Eastern members still represented. We brought in media markets in Texas and Oklahoma we've not experienced. And, we'll see what the future holds from a location standpoint.
How do you feel about you got the Iron Bowl, we got the Egg Bowl, we got the cocktail party. I feel like with the addition of the Sooners and Longhorns, you're really adding, and it might be more. No disrespect to anybody else, but I think 3 really significant rivalries. Obviously, Red River, obviously the game Thanksgiving weekend,
right?
But also Texas, Arkansas has. I mean, you like you said, 83. You were up. You know what that's about. You've added almost like 3 pretty intense rivalries.
I was an associate commissioner when Texas played at Arkansas in 04, and I made the trip with Mike Slive. We landed at the airport and we're on a shuttle bus forever. There were so many planes parked.
Yeah.
And then the intensity of the game, and then moved forward to 21. So we had made the invitation and the announcement, and then Texas played at Arkansas. Arkansas wins. Field gets rust, which you're not supposed to do in the league, but that's another story. I mean, that was an intense environment all day. And I think you hit on the one that people don't quite understand looking back. The others are a bit more natural. And then, Oklahoma and Missouri, I mentioned yesterday, we had 2 Big 8 members on Tuesday afternoon at Media Day. So there are a lot of relationships that exist. I think the ironic one is like the Board of Regents lawsuit from '84 was the Board of Regents at Oklahoma and Georgia sued the NCAA to free up television rights.
Really?
So there's a lot of undercurrents that exist within our current configuration.
Commissioner Sankey, you mentioned you thought about Dallas back in 2018. What do you think Commissioner Sankey in 2018 would have thought had you told him this is the current landscape of college football here in 2024?
Well, I would have tied my shoes tighter, maybe put a helmet on. There are some things that were foreseeable and some things not foreseeable. So the fact we'd been in litigation was foreseeable at that time. In fact, we had talked about it. The fact that we needed to be in a congressional relations, a federal relations activity, I identified in 2015. We were late to that party. In 18, we were a year away from California adopting the first NIL law, but we were active in thinking about that. What I would say to myself now, looking back, is how do you help people understand that that change that has been talked about on the outside is coming and we ought to lead from the inside? And so that was a big part of my commentary Monday. Was there are all kinds of ideas out there. Those are ideas. That doesn't mean they're solutions. There's not an element of those ideas that we can't drive internally. We just have to become comfortable making that change inside college athletics rather than having it be driven externally. And that is hard. And the difficulty is it's seen as working really well. We have 108,000 people in a stadium. College football is great. We got people graduating at a higher rate. It's great. They go to the pros or they can stay. NIL lets them make that decision. Yeah. It's great, but we've got to come back and address some of the underlying tensions that have been created since that time. And it's actually a great time frame to ask the question about.
And I think that underlying tension, I would say it's expected, but if you look at the history of any entity or in sports, it's refreshing to hear you say that, because it's that underlying tension and stuff that ultimately breaks and destroys things if unaddressed.
Look at Live Golf in the PGA Tour right now. Is professional golf healthy?
Well,
there's private equity, there's outside capital, there's, I'm sure, lawyers involved, there's ideas, but we're now watching the Masters, and maybe there's somebody there we don't see. We watch the U.S. Open, and there's people there that we expect, and we're going to see the British Open. What else do you really watch?
That's right.
And it used to be a ritual.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. If you're really like an auto racing person, it goes back to the old Indy days with USAC running it. And then there was USAC and CART in a split. You know, you had Johnny Rutherford and AJ Foyt, and who do we have now? I mean, it's just a different reality. I love IndyCar racing, but we have to really be careful that we, in pursuing solutions, don't create a divide that then can't be healed and recovered from.
Talking to Greg Sankey here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. The iPads on the sidelines. I'm really interested in seeing that. What other technology advancements can we see here over the next few years?
Well, we've got two this year. One is the sideline to headset communication for a player on each side of the ball. You know, does that manifest itself in a way that solves problems, or is it just something additional that has no meaning? So the NFL doesn't have hurry up offenses, but we have them all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's one. We've done a great deal of work. In fact, we have a staff member who is his phone, his picture when he calls me is him with a football helmet on with no face mask because he was testing in front of one of our marching bands at a game last fall.
Oh, wow.
The technology. The iPad technology is different. The NFL's used Surface. We wanted to just look around to see if we could be a little bit different. Tim Cook's an Auburn grad. That's not why this happened. Just their use of that adaptable technology, I think, is meaningful. And I had a visit with them about other ways that we can come in. Artificial intelligence, we have a seminar tomorrow, a panel actually, and we've talked about where can it help us? Can it help us in scheduling to just run more scenarios? Can it help us in officiating, believe it or not? We're not there. You think about automatic balls and strikes in baseball. That's a developing technology. And you think about all the things that happen pre-snap. Some of them are static. Some of them are not. Is there a way that machines can help us be more effective? Is a question that I introduced last year, and we have some staff working on that. And then there's the simple things, you know, the TV timeout clock.
Right.
So when we're at the All-Star game, they pop up timing now for everything. Well, we were the first, we created the TV timeout clock in football, and from the sophisticated, like artificial intelligence, and what does that actually mean, to are there some practical ways we can use technology to improve the experience? I think all of those are under conversation. They're relevant for what might be there in the future.
All right, you're always on the move here. You're the busiest guy here. You and Paul, I guess, but
you're all around too.
It's social though. I'm not working. But yeah, no, you know how much we appreciate this. I'd love to get you on next time you come check out our new studios in College Station.
Yeah, I would welcome that invitation.
And before I go, I like always asking you this because this is what I could talk to you all day about. Have you gotten any breaks? Give me a good vacation spot, a good recent concert you've seen, and whatever you're reading right now.
So I'm my place is in upstate New York where I grew, Skaneateles, New York, which is hard to spell.
Yeah.
And it's in the Finger Lakes region, and we have a 2-bedroom place there that is my happy spot. I just feel better, and so around the 4th, and I flew down here from Syracuse. It's just about 30 miles west of Syracuse. Weather was beautiful. The water was great. So that's a good spot for me. Now, if I wanted like big vacation, my brother lives on the island of Lanai. He's a high school teacher in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
And if you haven't been to Lanai, it's a great, like your RPMs drop off. And then there's a place at the Broadmoor Cloud Camp. It's on the mountain behind it. And we're going to grab a weekend there because it's just really refreshing. I missed the Zach Brown concert. I had tickets, and then events conspired to keep me away. So I'm looking ahead, complete opposite end of the spectrum. Steve Martin and Martin Short with the Steep Canyon Rangers. I have tried to see them. They're in Nashville midweek in September. And right now I've got tickets. It's on my calendar. I did see U2 at the Sphere in December.
I missed them by a day.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
The visuals. And so the Eagles thing at the Sphere, if I could figure out, when the National Football Foundation dinner's out there in early December, maybe stay a day or two extra.
Well, you let me know. I'll go to that one.
The Sphere U2 thing.
Yeah.
The visuals and the audio were awesome.
I saw like the animal deal the day before because U2 didn't start till the next day. Super Bowl. It was cool.
And then probably the two most interesting books I've read, John Meacham's biography of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
Like when you think you have problems, read like Lincoln's life.
Yeah.
And you're like, this isn't so bad. Like the tensions.
Yeah.
And then Eric Larson wrote a book about the circumstances in the country leading up to Fort Sumter.
Okay.
From both perspectives, DC, the southern states, just fascinating. In fact, I was born in Auburn, New York, the home of William Seward. He was a Secretary of State. And within both books, you'd have letters written from my hometown, from this house I visited, like on history class tours in junior high, that are now part of history. So I thought Larson's book was fascinating because it's almost a play-by-play. And you think about the difficulties in communicating, where now we can just zap a text to one another.
Yeah.
You're putting things on horseback to messenger across a boat and trying to understand what's
I
happening.
don't know how I would have fared back then, David.
We got 1 minute. Let me ask you just a quick question. Do you see a scenario where A&M and Texas play on Thanksgiving Day in the future?
That's really up to the school. So we schedule on Saturday. I think the celebratory reality is we're going to be in College Station with the renewal of that game. It'll be an incredible environment. And we really don't take positions. In fact, we don't have a Thursday game this year. The NFL is putting more and more content on Thursday. I don't want to detract from our enormous games that we have that week by just specifying a day. We've got 2 games on Friday this year, as I recall, where there's an NFL game too, but it's a little bit more opportunity for people to just stay at home and view on Black.
I like that. I love just if they're going to take over Thanksgiving Day, and that's my opinion. But appreciate
fun to see him play. I was asked if I'm ready for it, and a little bit of controversy around baseball, and I think I'm ready. But we have big games, but that will be enormous, and I'm excited to see that renewal. You got a volleyball match that starts it off in College Station.
Yeah, it does.
So
great volleyball.
You'll see. I would expect a house full for that one.
The whole thing's going to be fun. Appreciate you always.
Thank you again. Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you here on TexAgs Radio. We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.